Good morning. It is 7 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Bridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilfred, very good morning from me as well.
US Democrats released never-before-seen images of the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's private island.
Patients are being set up to suffer this winter and facing 12-hour waits in A&E because people are turning up to emergency departments with things like hiccups and ingrowing toenails.
The doctor who supplied ketamine to the late Friends star Matthew Perry is jailed for 2.5 years.
Also today, we're speaking to Made in Chelsea star Binky Felstead about her campaign to raise awareness of life-threatening allergic reactions.
Her son has a severe sesame allergy and she's calling for us all to get to grips with how to deal with anaphylaxis.
A very good morning to you. Our top story. Never-before-seen images of paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's private island have been released by politicians in the US. The images are from Little St. James, that's part of the US Virgin Islands, where Epstein's believed to have abused underage girls. They show Epstein's home, including bedrooms. Several photos show a room with a dentist chair and masks hanging on the wall.
Well, Democrat politicians have described the footage as a harrowing look behind Epstein's closed doors, and Congress is now pressing the Trump administration to release all of the files on Epstein. Our US correspondent Mark Stone has this explainer.
New images and video have been released of Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island. So what do they show? Who released them? And why? Well, here they are, taken in 2020 by the authorities in the US Virgin Islands. They show the property once owned by Jeffrey Epstein on Little St. James in the Caribbean. Epstein owned the whole island, and it's where much of the abuse against young girls is alleged to have taken place. The images and the videos show several bedrooms and bathrooms at the property. There's an office or study too, and on the walls, a blackboard. A closer look at the blackboard appears to show the words power, deception, political, truth. Some of the words have been redacted or obscured, and it's not clear what the words refer to or who wrote them. There's a telephone too, with first names on speed dial: Darren, Rich, Mike, Patrick and Larry. Others have been redacted. And then there's this, what appears to be a dentist chair and masks on the wall. It's not clear what need there was for a dentist chair. The masks look as though they're decorative, but again, it's not clear. One video shows the swimming pool area at the property, a property which the Epstein estate sold in 2023. Another shows a winding path down to the sea. But there is no context to these videos or to the images, and it's not clear precisely who took them. But last month, the House Oversight Committee in Congress here in Washington requested a tranche of documents from the US Virgin Islands Attorney General as they continue their own investigations into the late paedophile. These few documents appear to be from that wider tranche and were released by the Democratic Party members of the committee in an effort to further pressure the Trump administration to release all the files. Remember, President Trump has approved the release of the files. He did that in mid-November, and the Department of Justice has until the 19th of December to go ahead and release them.
Yeah, pretty shocking images there, I have to say. Leading nurses have warned hospital patients are being set up to suffer this winter, with reports of people facing 12-hour waits in A&E.
Part of the problem is people turning up to emergency departments with minor issues like blocked noses, sore throats and even hiccups. Health officials say England's A&E department saw more than 200,000 cases last year that could have been treated by GPs or pharmacists. Of course, we've also got the problem of corridor care at the start of a bad flu season and ahead of the coming resident doctors' strikes. Lots, therefore, to discuss with our health correspondent, Ashish Joshi, who's here with us. Ashish, very good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Break down for us some of the data points here, because a lot of it's kind of striking. At the same time, we know there's a lot of long wait to get to see a GP, so people are kind of slightly stuck on what their options are.
Yes, so it's always been the problem that if you don't see your GP, this is post-pandemic, you can't get to see your GP. Where is the one place where the doors are always open? That's A&E. So I think the headline there about ingrowing toenails, it sounds frivolous, but there's a very serious point. The point is, it's emergency department. If you have an emergency, go to your A&E, go to the emergency department. If you have something which can wait, don't go, because all of those patients who turn up in A&E, and doctors will say this to you all the time, every patient has to be seen, every patient has to be triaged. So yes, you will be bumped down that very long waiting list, and the people who are having cardiac arrests and seizures and strokes, they're the emergencies, they're the ones who have to be seen first. So that message is from the NHS to the rest of the country saying, we're here for you, but this is going to be a very, very busy time. You were mentioning flu season. That started early. That's put a lot of pressure on hospitals, ambulance services. I was in a hospital just yesterday, and this is midweek morning, and it was absolutely heaving. There was nowhere to move. The corridors were packed. There were patients waiting to be seen. And flu season is really hard for hospitals because the pressure it builds, it's what's called patient flow. You've got patients coming in through the emergency department. They need to be found beds, and those beds are all taken up because they run at capacity about 90%, and then they can't move those patients out. I spoke to one patient, 59-year-old, who has pneumonia, and he told me it was one of the most frightening experiences of his life, and he's still in hospital, still being treated. This is what he had to say.
I thought the end was near, I'll be honest. But
You thought you were going to die?
I really did, yeah, seriously.
Couldn't breathe?
Oh, well, the thing is, every time you breathe, that's the sharp pain. And so you've got to breathe, obviously, and that was just giving me so much pain. And finally they realised it, got me on morphine quick. And they've been very good. They've been very good.
I mean, it really brings it home listening to what that man said to you, Ashish, I have to say. We get these stories annually because obviously winter is the time when everyone gets ill. Do you think there's something different about this year?
That's what they do, Sophie, is they look at the southern hemisphere. They look for trends so they can try and mitigate what's about to come. And Australia had a terrible flu season, really, really bad. A new strain, and flu develops, it's a virus, and new strains every year. But this was a particularly tough flu season for the southern hemisphere. Lots of patients hospitalised, lots of deaths. So we knew it was coming. We didn't expect it to be here quite so soon. There's a doctor, a respiratory professor who I speak to just after this patient, who says he was seeing up to 100 patients a week in October, which is incredibly early. So, and then it goes away, and then it comes back really quickly. And as you can see, the message I would like to put across to people is when we talk about flu, it's not a bad cold.
Yeah.
Flu wipes you out. And if you have an underlying health condition, you're in serious trouble. So if you have access to a vaccination, get your flu jab.
It's great advice, Ashish. Thank you very much indeed.
Ashish, good stuff as always. Now, Labour's been accused of trying to subvert democracy over plans to delay 4 separate mayoral elections by 2 years.
So these are elections for new mayoralties of Essex, Hampshire and the Solent, Sussex and Brighton, and Norfolk and Suffolk, and they're all going to be pushed back until 2028. So Mari is here. First up, what is their reason for doing this?
So Labour argue that the councils haven't had the time to fully reorganise themselves, and what they're saying is essentially they need another couple of years to get to that point where they would then be ready to actually have elections and run properly. And this is because
this is the reorganisation that they've done, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's essentially moving from a kind of like a 2-tier system. You get different councils in different areas. Some are unitary councils. It's a bit complicated, but some are unitary councils, which is essentially is one big council. You get also separate councils that have 2 tiers, and then they might have a district council, for instance. And what the government has always said is that is often creating an overlap where sometimes 2 things are being done by different councils, and therefore they're trying to cut down on waste and be a bit more efficient. That is the argument. The difficulty is this has caused a huge outcry from opposition parties, the Lib Dems, the Conservatives and Reform, who are all saying that this is denying people democracy. Now, the difficulty here is if we look at the context, these were already delayed once under Angela Rayner when she was Local Government and Housing Secretary of State. So they were pushed back originally from May 2025 to 2026, and now it's going to be 2026 to 2028, so essentially a 3-year delay. And a lot of people are saying, hold on a second, that feels like a bit of a stretch. So let me give you some of the reaction. The Conservatives have called it... they're saying that, first of all, people have already been selected and that campaigning has already begun, and now this is essentially pulling the rug from under people. James Cleverly, who obviously is the shadow local government secretary, said it's a scandalous attempt to subvert democracy by a Labour government whose credibility and popularity, are already in tatters. The Lib Dems have called it a disgrace. Democracy delayed as democracy denied, they say, and then Reform have said it's a blatant attempt to stop big reform wins in May. They're expecting to do really well, as we understand. They say it's an act of desperate government clinging on to power by any means necessary. So this has caused a really big political outcry. Labour are trying to say it's very much a pragmatic and practical choice. The question is there a political element here?
Can I just quickly ask, in terms of what May's still going to have tons of local elections,
Yes,
and these would have been quite high-profile races within that, but if you're wondering whether there'll still be a big test for the government rather than just polls but actual votes, that's still happening, and the vast majority of what was planned is still happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will probably be quite tough for Labour. If you talk to Labour MPs, they are really worried about May. There was always rumours about whether May is the time to get rid of the Prime Minister, if you talk to the people who want the Prime Minister gone, of course. And so no matter what happens, this is still going to be really tough for Labour, either way. But what some people are arguing is Labour are trying to buy themselves a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about this as a test for Keir Starmer's leadership, right? You know, that's how bad it could be. That's the time when people are speculating about a potential challenge. Mari, thanks very much.
To Gaza now, and the fragile ceasefire that was tested last night after Israel said it launched an airstrike on a Hamas militant.
So Israel says the strike was in retaliation for an attack earlier that day that left 5 RDF or Israeli Defence Force soldiers injured, and it comes as Israel has confirmed the identity of the body of a hostage that was returned this week as the Thai nationals said to sack Rinthalak. That's according to the Prime Minister's office. The body of the last Israeli hostage, Ran Gavili, remains in Gaza.
Let's bring in our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons, who joins us now from Jerusalem. Adam, how significant is this exchange of fire? And of course it comes as well on the week when we heard that the crossing, the Rafah crossing was reopening. How significant was that? Is it really happening?
Yeah, you've got multiple things that could turn out to be significant. On the Rafah crossing, the Israelis say it's going to open but only in one direction. The Egyptians say that isn't acceptable to them. So at the moment, that looks a little bit of a diplomatic stalemate. The peace agreement actually mentions that crossing but doesn't say whether it has to be open in both directions or not. I think and then on the airstrike, 5 IDF soldiers were injured, one of them seriously at least, when an attack was carried out by Hamas fighters, who appears to have come out from a tunnel. Now, there are those who say that some of these Hamas fighters don't actually know that a ceasefire has been put in place. They opened fire and fire was returned. Now, we know that the Israelis always then launch retaliatory strikes, and that is what they did. They say they targeted a Hamas senior figure, but it would appear that as a result of that airstrike, looks like there might have been a fire, or others say there was simply a hit on a displaced persons refugee camp in Khan Yunis, in a place called Al-Mawasi. And we're told that 5 people have been killed there, 2 of them children, and a lot of people have been injured, maybe dozens. So that is yet another exchange of fire, yet more people dying in Gaza during the ceasefire. But potentially diplomatically, the most important moment could be the return of the last but one hostage, Sudasa Ransalak, who's a Thai national. Now, actually, I think it was over 30 Thais were taken hostage on October 7th. Most of them were returned during the first and second ceasefires and those return of hostages happen. But this one, Mr. Sansalek is reported to have died on October the 7th. His death was then confirmed in May 2024, and his remains have now been returned and identified. What that means is that there is only one body of a hostage left. That is an Israeli, Rani Gavili, a soldier whose body has yet to be returned and who is now becoming clearly a sort of symbol of many questions, which are A, when will that body be returned? And then when it is, what happens next? Because this first phase about returning the hostages, returning the bodies, is nearly coming to an end, and there is precious little planning, frankly, that seems evident about phase 2. When Mr. Gavili's body is returned, that phase 2 planning is going to become into stark relief.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Adam Parsons reporting there for us in Jerusalem.
Now, as peace talks continue to attempt to end the war in Ukraine, key points of the original 28-point Trump administration plan remain contentious. An initial proposal included Ukraine giving up the Donbass to Russia, but troops who have fought to defend the region are against those plans. Our Defence and Security Editor, Deborah Haynes, spoke to soldiers on the front line.
I'm against retreating, giving any territories away. If we now give away borders, give away Donbass, then what? Any country can come to any other country and say, this is our land, let's coordinate, do business, and keep living as before. That is not normal, in my view.
What's your message to Donald Trump, who's trying to force Ukraine into a peace deal?
What could I say? If someone took a piece of his territory, what would he say to that? The same goes for us.
Well, our Security and Defence Editor, Deborah Haynes, is in the Donbass for you. I mean, look, we've been following the kind of diplomatic dance, if you like, here. You've been there on the front line, talking to people whose lives are impacted by this. What's your takeaway after those conversations?
Yes, well, those soldiers that I was speaking to, so the first man, he's called Vadim, and he was working in this sort of secret bomb factory. It's back from the front line, close to the city of Kramatorsk in the Donbass. An extraordinary place where they've got this makeshift production line making anti-personnel mines, explosives that can be dropped from bombs as well. They showed me a video of how one of them works. And he's been fighting since 2014, because remember, that was when Russia first attacked Ukraine. And he, as you heard him saying, finds it very difficult to think about a world where Ukraine just gives up swathes of the Donbass. It holds on to still significant amounts of that territory. Yes, Russia has taken key cities. You'll remember names of Mariupol, of Bakhmut, of Avdiivka. Russia is claiming now to be in control of Pokrovsk. It's something that Ukraine has denied as the case, but there are fierce battles still taking place, many, many lives lost by Ukraine in defending their land. And I think really that is why soldiers would find it so difficult to have to come to some sort of deal. But there was another soldier that I spoke to as well who was saying just how difficult it is. You don't want more lives to be lost. You do want the war to end, but you don't want the fighting to be in vain. So even on the front line, it's very, very complicated, as we are seeing that it is diplomatically too.
Deborah, thank you very much indeed. Deborah Haynes there, reporting to us from Kharkiv. Time now for our government interview slot. There's an awful lot being talked about special needs at the minute, so we're going to try and unpack some of that with our next guest. Josh MacAlister is the Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing, and he joins us now. Great to have you with us. So with your kind of well-being hat on, I was quite struck by the news today that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has ordered this review into the rise in mental health conditions being diagnosed, so mental health issues, anxiety, ADHD, autism, all of these, of course, partly leading to an increased claim in benefits. Do you think we're, like, over-medicalising something that is just sort of a normal part of life?
So the first thing to say is that Peter Fonagy, who's been asked to do this report, who's a clinical psychologist, it's really welcome that we've got somebody looking at the evidence across the board to establish an answer to that question, because I think people are asking it. We see big variation across the country from mental health trust to mental health trust about what kind of diagnosis people get. I think there's questions that should be asked about that variation. But I'm also really pleased that today the government are announcing SEND support in family hubs. So this means families will be able to get support really early on, even without a diagnosis. And one of the features of how broken our SEND system is at the moment is parents battling to get that diagnosis, that ticket, in order to get any kind of help.
What you spoke there, because I do want to talk about the special needs stuff. I think it's really, really important. You spoke there about how people are asking the question about whether there's an overdiagnosis for some mental health conditions when it comes to benefits. And I just wonder, is it the same, do you think, for education and special needs in particular? I mean, we have seen a big rise in children getting extra support in class for these conditions too. It's up 13% this year alone. The trajectory is only one way.
So I think multiple things can be true at the same time, which is parents seeing things they're worried about for their children and wanting some sort of support and help, and the current system doesn't put that help and support in early enough, and that takes people down the path of pursuing a diagnosis, when actually, if schools and other professionals could get in earlier, that would make a big difference. So we're saying we're going to put SEND specialists into every family hub over the next few years to help do that. And at the same time, there are young people, young adults as well as children, who have clearly got very severe needs, and the system at the moment isn't able to put that support in early or often enough of it to make the difference.
I absolutely accept that, you know, there are a lot of kids who have got severe needs, the system's failing them, right? You know, I speak to parents, I see them on the school run who are battling and exasperated because of it. But I guess my question is, are there some people who are claiming for this stuff that shouldn't be? And I'm thinking in particular, like middle-class parents who are potentially gaming the system. I looked at the Sutton Trust report. Among all children with special and educational needs, those from more affluent homes are more likely to get an ECHP. In Part 3, families spending more money on the process, 68% of middle-class families spending money on it, 28% of working-class parents, 11% of middle-class parents spent over £5,000 on their application. I mean, is this a problem?
Well, look, we're doing 3 bits of work at the moment. We're doing the SEND review in my department.
But what's your assessment on that? Because I know the work you're doing, and I get that. But the question is, which I think is kind of fundamental, is are too many parents gaming the system to claim for special needs? And is that why we've seen this massive increase?
Look, we need a scientific answer to that question rather than lots of people's general opinions.
What's your view? You're the children's minister.
Peter Fonagy's going to look at it. Look, I am worried. You know, in my constituency, I've got 500 people under the age of 25 who are out of work with mental health conditions. And I know from speaking to many of them and their parents that part of what they're struggling with is the social anxiety that comes from not being in work and the overlap between conditions with a diagnosis and the social interaction aspects of some of these conditions, where actually you can end up retreating from the world, feeling more anxious, being more lonely and depressed. And that is a cycle that people can get themselves stuck in. And what we need is support for young people to get them into work. The government's got unprecedented levels that we've announced on that. And in the special educational needs system, not just support for young people, but support for families to help children who might be struggling. So we're going to look at the evidence. It's really welcome that we're doing this scientific review for that reason.
Can I ask you about the special needs budget? Because obviously there's been this change, right? Central government is going to take over funding from councils, but there is this £6 billion black hole by 2028. To put it in context, that's 9% of the entire school's budget. So it feels unlikely that that's going to fall completely on the Department for Education. What's going on with that budget?
The first thing to say is that won't come out of school budgets. What has happened here, and it's a sort of technical accounting issue, is that the government have bit the bullet on the SEND system and how bust it has become, because lots of local authorities across the country have racked up big deficits. It's not sustainable to leave local authorities carrying these deficits because of a broken national system.
Is it sustainable for it to keep going up? £6 billion, you're going to find that money?
So what we've done is we've made sure that the OBR have scored that deficit. It's being registered. Government spends £1.2 trillion. We're going to make sure in the next spending review we have got the plan and it's being implemented to fix the SEND system and school budgets will not be carrying that deficit.
Are you going to try and bring the cost down? This is, I guess, it's my kind of key issue here. Is the bill for special needs unsustainable?
We'll be setting out the SEND reforms early in the new year, but the thing to say here, and my area of specialism is children's social care, and I think there are some parallels where the broken nature of the system driving late-stage crisis costs is pushing up the long-term bill. And at the same time, we're cutting help earlier on. There are similar dynamics at play in special educational needs, and there's a benefit for children, families and taxpayers in getting it right.
You've taken the decision, not you personally, the government has taken the decision to postpone 4 mayoral elections again, right? Nigel Farage has said, for the second year running, this failing Labour government will now cancel elections in areas they fear reform will win. These are the actions of despots, not Democrats.
Well, I'd say Nigel pulled the other one. I represent a constituency in Cumbria. We're going to have a mayoral election in Cumbria. The reason we're going ahead in 2027, it's all very technical, but the reason we're going ahead in 2027 is that we have unitary local authorities that have already been reorganised. The other parts of the country that are having a postponement have still got districts and county levels to be reorganised.
It's the second year in a row, though. It's not like this just happened a couple of months ago.
Well, to be fair, we have only recently become the government. This is a new set of devolution that we're bringing forward. Local authorities
not that recent.
Organise
How
themselves.
long have you... It's over a year.
Well, hang on. The last government had 14 years to do devolution properly, and we got barely anywhere on it. So we're speeding this up in a major way, pushing power down to communities. Doing that means elected mayors, yes, but also getting money into these areas for new economic regeneration. And the final thing is, the people who are saying this are the same people who not that many years ago were proroguing Parliament. We'll take no lectures from these people about democracy, protecting it, freedom of speech and all the rest of it. It's just not serious.
We know these local elections can be difficult for Labour, right? There's talk about a leadership challenge for Keir Starmer coming after them. You've now postponed them, 4 of them. I mean, you can see how it looks a bit suspicious.
There are elections taking place next year. So there will be elections taking place next year. Local authorities, where they're still in 2 tiers and they haven't reorganised that basic foundation of being a unitary council, it would be a rush to push for that now rather than get it right. But we're not delaying the money that's going into those communities.
OK, thanks very much indeed. Josh MacAlister is talking to us there. Coming up, we are going to be talking about Ukraine. We've had that extraordinary reporting from Deborah Haynes on the front line. We're going to be finding where on earth we're up to with that potential peace deal.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories. Never-before-seen images of Jeffrey Epstein's private island have been released by Democrats in the US in an attempt to be transparent with the public about their investigation. The US Department of Justice has until the middle of this month to release thousands of documents linked to civil and criminal cases involving the paedophile financier.
Nurses have warned that hospital patients are being set up to suffer this winter. Reports of people facing 12-hour waits in A&E. Apparently, this is partly because of the 200,000 non-urgent cases last year, with people turning up for little things like blocked noses, sore throats, and even hiccups.
Labour has been accused of political interference by opposition parties after postponing 4 mayoral elections by 2 years. Sky News understands the government intends to announce that the votes will be delayed until 2028. Let's get more now on one of our top stories after Ukraine and Europe accused Vladimir Putin of effectively time-wasting and not actually wanting to pursue any kind of peace. Moscow says that's not the case, but the longer the war drags on, the harder it is to believe. Well, Matthew Savile's here from the Royal United Services Institute, the world's oldest defence and security think tank, also known as RUSI. Matthew, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, my pleasure.
I actually just wanted to start on that threat that we got from Putin the other day. Was that saber-rattling, that he said he's ready for war with Europe if necessary, or is it something people should take note of?
Well, I think, it is something that people should take note of, but for now it is saber-rattling. With their ground forces largely bogged down in and around Ukraine, it's unlikely that the Russians are going to be starting a war with even more advanced militaries across Europe right now. The question is, first of all, how far ahead are they planning in terms of the constitution, rebuilding those forces and the threat that they could present to Europe down the line? But also, we need to think about what the threat is. So you're not going to see Russian tanks, you're unlikely to see Russian tanks rolling across the border in Poland in the next 6 months, 12 months. But is Europe prepared to defend itself against Russian attempts to conduct sabotage, to conduct political subversion, to conduct these kind of covert operations, assassinations, and then also nibble away at the political ties that bind Europe together, and particularly NATO. So incursions, things that test European military and security response capabilities.
I'm interested in your take on the extent to which clearly spending is going up. Some would like it to go up quicker, but it's going up on defence. We've had endless reviews over the last decade to make sure that spending is as efficient as possible. And then we get this issue most recently with these Ajax tanks. I know tanks is not the right word, but everyone understands it when we use it. How worrying is that one of the big recent expenditures has backfired in such a way?
There's an enormous challenge in terms of turning raw finance into actual capability. And the UK, like many European militaries, has got a problem in that it is both probably not quite spending enough for the demands that it sets for its military. It's also not particularly efficient in how it spends money. So a good example would be to compare overall European NATO military spending to Russia. And you can see that Europe probably spends, spending is going up, but even 12 months ago, it was about $457 billion. And that was probably 3 or 4 times Russia's defence spending in terms of what it's actually spending. But when you look at purchasing power, it's a much closer calculation. And of course, Russia's spending that on one military. Europe is spending that split over many militaries who are then buying in small amounts of boutique exquisite, expensive capability and lack mass, people, resources, missile stockpiles, those sorts of things.
In terms of where Russia is at the moment, you mentioned some of their spending more broadly over the last year. Are they on the back foot militarily on the ground in terms of their supplies or not?
No, I think they are still acting as if they have a bit more in the tank, pun not intended, in that they are prepared to be pretty callous with their people in inching forwards in Ukraine. And from what I've seen recently, Ukrainian defence intelligence has estimated that they are able to continue the production of their more sophisticated weapons, cruise and ballistic missiles. They're still able to produce armoured vehicles. They are finding ways to get round those losses by pressing people forwards. Their defence industrial complex is taking hits, and their energy production is the Ukrainians are focusing on at the moment, cutting refining capacity. But they are calculating that they can outlast European and US support to Ukraine, and that they can basically break Ukraine's will to resist, or at least prevent it from being able to be economically independent.
And what are your sources telling you on that latter part, Ukraine's both will and ability to persist?
I think that the essential, the national will to resist is very clearly still there, because this is existential for them. But you can see a high degree of kind of war weariness. It's proving ruinously expensive in terms of attacks on their energy infrastructure. I think there is interest in a genuine ceasefire. The problem that we've seen over the past couple of days is that the Russians are not really engaging with that process sincerely. I think they're interested in what the US might offer them, but they are happy to string that out and keep seeing what they can grab on the ground at the moment.
Matthew, great stuff. Good to see you as always. Matthew Saville there from Russia. Now, the doctor who supplied ketamine to Friend star Matthew Perry has been jailed for 30 months.
His death 2 years ago shocked all of us, and Salvador Palencia is the first of 5 people who may be sentenced over his death.
Salvador wasn't accused of selling the dose that killed the actor, but had been supplying the drug to him in the weeks beforehand. Of course, a hugely high-profile case in the US over the last couple of years, and that's the first of the sentencings.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's, I think, shone light on the prescription drugs that people are getting as well, obviously illegal drugs too, but all doctors prescribing drugs, people prescribing drugs, and the impact that is having.
Sky News has spoken to 3 TikTok whistleblowers who say users are being put at risk by mass layoffs at the company. As well as increasing the role of AI in moderating content, TikTok is reportedly offshoring jobs to agencies in other countries.
So TikTok say the changes will maximise the effectiveness of moderation on the platform, which I think in other words makes it more safer, less abusive perhaps. The moderators' names have been changed to protect their identity.
Do you think these cuts are going to put people at risk, as in users?
Yes. There are a lot of nuances in the language. AI cannot understand all the nuances. AI cannot differentiate some, ironic comment versus a real threat or bullying, or, a lot of things that we have to do with user safety, mainly of children and teenagers.
We felt like we were part of something big, and then at the end of the day, we're the first ones to be replaced by AI or by people in other countries.
Let's say if you see a naked body, you don't really need to be British to know it's a naked body. But when it comes to, for example, hate speech or harassment or bullying, there's always this cultural thing that maybe other people are not going to get.
Well, Mickey Carroll joins us now to discuss this a bit further. So where are we, Mickey, in terms of, I guess, all of the social media platforms here and what they're required to do versus what they kind of have been doing and might now be stepping back from a little bit?
So for years, social media platforms have been required to look after their users online, but since July, there's been new online safety rules put in, which means they're required to enforce the rules of their platform. So platforms like TikTok have to make sure that damaging, hateful, bullying content, that sort of thing, isn't seen by viewers. But when we've spoken to these moderators, they say that that's potentially at risk now by these cuts. They've actually got 2 claims that they're putting against TikTok, and they both centre around these cuts that are being put in at TikTok. So in August, we heard that more than 400 moderators and trust and safety workers were going to lose their jobs in London, and they would be replaced by AI, and the humans that they did need at TikTok would be rehired by agencies in other countries. Now, these workers say that after working with the AI at TikTok for years, it's simply not ready to do that job. It's not capable of the level of accuracy that a human can achieve. But also that those agency workers in other countries, when they've worked with them in the past, they're under higher stress, they've got higher workloads, but they're also not, they don't have the kind of local context that you need for particularly things like slurs and that sort of thing that a local moderator might be able to catch more easily. So they say that TikTok users are being put at risk by these cuts. Now, the second claim that the moderators have got, and the unions that are representing them as well, the TUC and the CWU, is that TikTok may have misled MPs about these cuts. So it's not just the moderators that are worried about user safety. MPs, the Science and Technology Committee, wrote to TikTok earlier last month and said that they wanted evidence that users wouldn't be put at risk. And when TikTok replied, in this 3-page letter detailing why they thought they wouldn't be, there was a line in there that said, it's important to stress that these remain proposals only. And now the moderators and the unions say that that was misleading, that a week before that letter was sent, more than 400 of the moderators had signed termination contracts. They'd handed in their laptops, they'd had their access revoked to the TikTok systems, and that in fact the proposals weren't proposals anymore, they were a plan that had already been executed. Now, it is important to say that TikTok completely deny all of these claims. They say that they've laid out in detail that the reorganisation of their global operating model for trust and safety will ensure that they maximise effectiveness and speed in their moderation processes, that they'll continue to use a combination of technology and human teams to keep their users safe. And in regards to the claims that they're kind of misleading MPs, they say it's entirely right that we follow UK employment law, including when consultations remained ongoing for some employees and roles were still under proposal for removal. We've been open and transparent about the changes that were proposed, including in detailed public letters to the committee, and it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise.
Kind of zooming out for a bit, Mickey, I'm just interested to get your sort of take on it. Do you feel that we're getting better when it comes to social media platforms taking responsibility for, you know, the well-being of their users, or do you think we are having a few steps backwards? What do you think?
I think in the UK we're in a really interesting position where actually we've got quite robust rules now around social media, and we've got this massive focus that you don't actually see in a lot of other countries. So I think people seem to feel safer online at the moment. And I mean, earlier this year in August, I went and spoke to a load of teenagers in Warrington after the new rules came in, and they said they felt safer online, that they'd seen less harmful content since the Online Safety Act had been enforced. So I think things definitely seem to be getting better, but then, you know, these are companies that want to keep their profits high and their margins low. So you can see that in the future, maybe the trust and safety processes that they put in place, if they are costing them a lot, maybe they'll be kind of cut down.
It's really interesting.
Mickey, great stuff. Thanks so much. If you scan the QR code, by the way, you can read more about Mickey's reporting on this particular topic.
Now, coming up, we are going to be talking about allergies. I think it's a really, really interesting issue. We have, of course, seen this growth in people having pretty severe allergic reactions. Science is changing. We're going to be talking to somebody who you might recognise, Binky Felsted, Made in Chelsea fame, about why she's campaigning for more awareness.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but...
Listen, I told you 3...
If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcasts.
The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparency in journalism. We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
We gather, analyse and visualise data to tell data-driven stories. Sky News has been given exclusive data. Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in. Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. Now we are talking allergies. It's because researchers found half of all people say they couldn't identify it if someone was having a severe allergic reaction.
And perhaps more alarmingly, almost 90% of people say they wouldn't feel confident helping someone having anaphylaxis.
Well, lots of people are going to know Binky Falstad from the show Made in Chelsea. She's here because her son has a severe sesame allergy. It's great to have you on the programme, and thanks for talking about your own, experience as a mum. I just wondered if you want to talk a little bit about your little boy first. What situation is he in?
Hi guys. So yeah, Wolfie is 4 and he has a severe sesame allergy. We were giving him hummus one day in the countryside, having lunch, and he was eating hummus, rubbing it on his face as he had done before, but all of a sudden got incredibly upset, developed these red rashes with white dots on them, and started getting incredibly upset and crying, and then his face started to swell, which was very scary. And we didn't realise what was going on because we had no idea what a reaction looked like before.
And I mean, it's honestly terrifying hearing you recount that, to imagine it happening to such a young child. What is the advice that I guess you're now aware of, maybe you weren't at the time, on what should be done in that situation?
Well, we rushed him straight to a pharmacy. We didn't know where we were. We were in the middle of the country, as I said, and the pharmacist came out to look at him, and he was only a toddler, and he saw his mouth and his eyes, the half of his face was swollen, and he said, right, let's give him Piriton and let's call an ambulance straight away. And thank goodness there was an ambulance on their lunch break having lunch, and they came within 2 minutes, if not sooner, and they gave him the adrenaline device and rushed him to hospital where he was monitored for the next 7 hours. Absolutely terrifying. But of course, now we know those early signs of anaphylaxis and we now know what to do. So we carry an adrenaline device everywhere we go now.
So it's really important, isn't it, about knowing the signs. This is why you're here. This is why people listening should take advice on it as well. Because, as you say, it doesn't always happen, from birth. It can be something that you develop as well. So what are the signs? What are the signs of anaphylaxis?
So swelling, itchy throat. Wolfie starts coughing. He starts complaining of an itchy throat, tummy ache. But you can see the visual reaction is red rashes with little white dots on potentially, swelling of the mouth, the eye, and then he is sometimes very sick as well. But you can just tell, small children, they get incredibly upset. And, the scary thing is, obviously, the airways becoming swollen and blocked, and then the unthinkable may happen. So it's very, very important, and everyone knows.
And I guess it's more broadly a point that whether it's from sesame seeds or nut allergies, obviously or less rare, these conditions can exist more widely than perhaps people expect. And I guess there's a tone as well where a lot of people might be not dismissive intentionally about how serious they can be, but just slightly unaware about how serious some of these allergies can be.
And that's why we're encouraging people to speak to their broader friends and family about allergies and what were to happen, what could you do to help if there were to be an anaphylaxis, because it is life-threatening. And of course, with the Christmas, festivities going on, going to people's houses, you just got to be reaction ready. Carry your adrenaline device wherever you go, so you can help someone, just in case.
We've got some pictures of Wolfie that, with your permission, we were going to show. And look, he looks absolutely adorable, even in that condition. So that is that the swelling that you're talking about, Binky?
Yes, the one with his face. Yeah, you can see his face is most of it's swollen, and that's where it's quite scary, because of course, if his mouth is swelling, his tongue is swelling, then everything else is swelling, and that will block his airways.
Honestly, it's the kind of thing that is genuinely going to have a really, really big impact, I think. Just showing the pictures and talking about it and getting the warning signs around. It feels to me, because I know, people that I'm close to who have children with allergies, who battle with this stuff all the time, and it is honestly terrifying, right? You don't know. It's like you might be going to a kid's birthday party and someone brings in a cake, and it's a risk, or all these little things that you have to think about as a parent all the time. I just wonder, do you think there needs to be more done in terms of public information campaign or some sort of contact with the NHS to help parents be more aware of this kind of thing?
Well, look, back in the day when we were going to restaurants, no one used to ask us if we had any allergies. I think that's happening a lot more. I've noticed that anyway, a lot more. When we go out to eat, people are asking, are there any allergies at the table? And of course, Wolfie is now at the age where he does always ask, is there sesame in this? Or we'll go to a friend's party. That's the scary thing. If I don't want to leave him and he finds something he doesn't realise has sesame in. But I think all we can do is just gain knowledge for ourselves, and that is enough, because I think what I can see going out in the world at the moment is that people are becoming more clued up, which is just brilliant. Because I had no idea about allergies before I had a son with an allergy, because you don't normally think, why should I look into it? But if you can save someone's life, that is, that's enough in itself.
Binky, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Binky Filstead there from Made in Chelsea, and sharing that personal story as well for more awareness. Yeah, it's such a big deal, I think, with allergies in particular. And we are seeing, for whatever reason, there's lots of speculation about why it might be, a rise in allergies. Some people say it's the big thing now is also kind of slightly conversely, early exposure, which is why the recommendation now is, when you've got a child who's 6 months, give them peanut butter at that point. Don't wait, which I think a lot of parents used to do in the past, because actually the early exposure is something that can also help in the fight against some allergies too. Turning to the cricket now, day one of the second Ashes test in Brisbane. England have been trying to rebuild after going down 2 wickets early on. And rebuilding in style, I think we should say. It was an absolutely horrific start, but now I think England fans have got quite a lot more to feel a bit more optimistic about, right? So England chose to bat first. and lost a couple of wickets early on, though.
Ben Duckett got out on the first ball he faced. He was caught behind off the bowling of Mitchell Starc. And then it got worse for England because Ollie Pope also got out without scoring any runs. Again, he was bowled by Mitchell Starc. And so at that point, it only scored 5 runs in total. Absolute disaster start, to be honest.
But bounced back, Crawley helping to stabilise along with Root. Crawley getting 76.
He did eventually get out after that amazing performance, caught behind from the bowling of Michael Nessa there. Joe Root battled on, though. He reached 50 runs off 83 balls. England a total of 151 runs, having lost 3 batsmen at that stage. Just want to sort of pause and talk for a moment about the cricket, right? Because I'm a late convert to this, I'll be honest. I wasn't the sort of person who would watch Test cricket on TV when I was younger. But it is, I would describe it as the kind of like novel of the sports world. It's got everything. It's got like kind of the different acts. It's got the characters who kind of build over the series. They've got these kind of character arcs that come and go. You've got the setting, which in this case is of Australia. Possibly, I would argue, the most hostile sporting environment of all, or maybe America in the Ryder Cup, but, you know, a close second. It's absolutely visceral. So it's just an absolutely extraordinary kind of sporting experience.
And obviously comes at a time as well where it's a 5-series match, I guess, a 5-match series, lost the first one.
Yeah.
First day now of the second to try and bounce back.
Yeah, and I think there's the other thing that's going on here as well, other than the like amazing kind of personalities that you see, is I would also argue as a battle of the essence of cricket. I can hear people in my ear, by the way, saying that they struggle with cricket, and I think this is why I want to talk today, right? Because I think a lot of people, me back in the day, also struggled for cricket. And it's a battle for the soul of cricket because you've got the kind of Australia, the kind of traditions, the not taking any risks, the staying at the crease for as long as possible. And then you've got baseball that's exploded onto the scene, that is the kind of like young buck of cricket where they're trying to smash balls all over the place. And I think, again, this kind of comes back to why Australia and England hate each other. Sorry, I've been really talking about this for too long now. I think it's time to be quiet, but it's exciting.
Only because we're out of time, and we'll be right back after this.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Origin Frost.
With Sophy and Wilf, good morning from me as well. Busy morning ahead.
Patients are being set up to suffer this winter and facing 12-hour waits in A&E because people are turning up to emergency departments with things like hiccups and ingrowing toenails.
US Democrats release never-before-seen images of inside the private island of the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein.
The final report into the death of Dawn Sturgess is published today after she was poisoned with a deadly nerve agent in Salisbury.
Also today, Ofcom fine a pornography company £1 million for not having robust age checks in place. We're going to be discussing online safety with the watchdog shortly.
And the top Google searches for 2025 are revealed. Let us know what's captured your attention this year.
Good morning. Let's start with the NHS because leading nurses have warned hospital patients are being, in their words, set up to suffer this winter with reports of people waiting for up to 12 hours in A&E.
Part of the problem is people turning up to emergency departments with minor issues like blocked noses, sore throats and even hiccups. Health officials say England's A&E departments saw more than 200,000 cases last year that could have been treated by GPs or pharmacists. And of course, we've got the problem of corridor care at the start of a bad flu season and ahead of those coming strikes by resident doctors. Well, I'm delighted to say Ashish is here to talk us through all of this. And some of these statistics are really quite striking. Some of them kind of comes with, I guess, a sense of understanding from where the patients might be coming from if they can't get the GP appointment in the first place.
Yeah, look, the messaging around A&E has changed over the last 12 months or so. Before, I think there was a reluctance on the part of NHS England, doctors working in A&E, to say to patients, you really don't need to be here. We're really busy. You can be seen in community care. You can dial 111. You can get treatment through your pharmacy, for example. And there was a reluctance to actually challenge patients. And then I've seen a mood change among staff in A&E. They will happily call out patients who say, look, they'll walk you into a waiting area and they'll say, from there to there, they don't need to be here. I need to see these patients. I need to see the patients who are here because it's an emergency, because they're having a cardiac arrest, a stroke, they've been in a road collision or something. Half the people don't get their appointments on time when they think they need to be seen immediately. And then what they do is they walk into hospital because those doors never close. If you address that problem, then those staff in A&E can deal with the emergencies and the whole, I hate using the term because it's an NHS jargon, it's flow. Patients coming into a hospital, being seen in A&E, getting a bed and then being discharged on time. That's a hospital flow. And when the hospital stops flowing, then you have these bottlenecks and that's when you can't discharge patients. Patients have to wait in corridors, on trolleys, and they're just not seen in a timely way because the demand surges during winter. I was in a hospital this week talking to respiratory consultants and flu season has hit hard already and it's come early and that puts a lot of pressure on hospitals. I spoke to a 59-year-old patient, Paul Mather, who has pneumonia and pleurisy and he was in absolute agony. Listen to what he had to say.
I thought the end was near, I'll be honest. But
you thought you were going to die?
I really did, yeah, seriously.
Couldn't breathe?
Oh, well, the thing is, every time you breathe, that's the sharp pain. And so you've got to breathe, obviously, and that was just giving so much pain. And finally they realised it, got me on morphine quick. And they've been very good. They've been very good.
I mean, look, it's pretty stark when you hear that guy saying, I thought I was going to die. And that's all of our fear, right? That because of pressures on the NHS, when we need that emergency care, it's not going to be there because it's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, do you think it's different this winter rather than the normal winter pressures?
It's too early to say. The pressures come every winter. But this year, when Will was going through that list, right, so you've got the winter pressures, you've got COVID, you've got flu, you've got RSV, you've got noro, you've got all of these winter illnesses. Flu season looks like it's going to be particularly bad. And on top of that, you've got the doctor strikes. That won't help. And the demand, what we have to understand is we have an aging population with complex comorbidities. We get older, right? We live longer because of science and medicine, but also we need more care. And is the NHS the structure in place to look after this aging population with comorbidities and where demand keeps rising and there are serious problems about the workforce and everything else? We will know at 9:30 today, guys. We get the first winter sit-rep reports. This is an overall snapshot of what's happening in our hospitals with capacity flu patients and everything else. Not the waiting times and the handover times, but certainly what's going on with capacity because of flu and other viruses. So 9:30 today, first data drop from the NHS.
That's really interesting. We'll try and bring you that when it does come, 9:30. Thank you.
Now, never before seen images of paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's private island have been released by politicians in the US. The images from Little St. James, which is part of the US Virgin Islands, where Jeffrey Epstein is believed to have abused underage girls. They show Epstein's home, including bedrooms. Several photos show an extraordinary room with a dentist chair and masks hanging on the wall.
It's grim. It's grim stuff. Democrat politicians describe the footage as a harrowing look behind Epstein's closed doors. And just to give you kind of political background, Congress now pressing the Trump administration to release all of the files on Epstein. Our US correspondent Mark Stone has this explainer.
New images and video have been released of Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island. So what do they show? Who released them? And why? Well, here they are, taken in 2020 by the authorities in the US Virgin Islands. They show the property once owned by Jeffrey Epstein on Little St. James in the Caribbean. Epstein owned the whole island, and it's where much of the abuse against young girls is alleged to have taken place. The images and the videos show several bedrooms and bathrooms at the property. There's an office or study too, and on the walls, a blackboard. A closer look at the blackboard appears to show the words power, deception, political, truth. Some of the words have been redacted or obscured, and it's not clear what the words refer to or who wrote them. There's a telephone too, with first names on speed dial: Darren, Rich, Mike, Patrick and Larry. Others have been redacted. And then there's this, what appears to be a dentist chair and masks on the wall. It's not clear what need there was for a dentist chair. The masks look as though they're decorative, but again, it's not clear. One video shows the swimming pool area at the property, a property which the Epstein estate sold in 2023. Another shows a winding path down to the sea, but there is no context to these videos or to the images, and it's not clear precisely who took them. But last month, the House Oversight Committee in Congress here in Washington requested a tranche of documents from the US Virgin Islands Attorney General as they continue their own investigations into the late paedophile. These few documents appear to be from that wider tranche and were released by the Democratic Party members of the committee in an effort to further pressure the Trump administration to release all the files. Remember, President Trump has approved the release of the files. He did that in mid-November, and the Department of Justice has until the 19th of December to go ahead and release them.
Mark Stone there for us. Now, you'll no doubt remember the case of Dawn Sturgis, the woman who was poisoned by the nerve agent Novichok in Wiltshire in 2018.
So, if you remember, it was a perfume bottle that was laced with the deadly nerve agent that ended up killing her. It was linked to Russian operatives, and then it led to this global diplomatic crisis.
Well, today, the final report into her death will be published. Let's get out to Dan Whitehead, who's been following this closely for us ahead of the report's publication. Dan, what are the sort of things we're looking out for today?
Well, this inquiry has heard evidence from 40 witnesses over 7 weeks. The point is to establish what led up to Dawn Sturgis's death, who was responsible, whether any lessons can be learned. The inquiry heard the evidence towards the end of last year. It opened with the fact that the 44-year-old mother of 3 was an innocent member of the public who was caught in the crossfire of an illegal and outrageous international assassination attempt. I think it's worth just going back to 2018 to understand the chronology of what happened back then. It was actually an attack against a former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter Yulia, who lived in Salisbury. You'll remember that that military-grade chemical weapon, Novichok, was spread on the door handle of their home. They were found slumped on a bench, but ultimately survived. Fast forward 4 months to July 2018, and 999 calls start to come in from Amesbury, around 8 miles away from Salisbury. Those calls coming from Charlie Rowley, who is the boyfriend of Dawn Sturgis. She had fallen ill after spraying what she thought was perfume from a bottle. As you mentioned, it was given to her by him. She was found in her bath, frothing at the mouth, the inquiry heard. And she later died in hospital. Now, last year we heard around, as I say, 7 weeks of evidence from police, from paramedics, ambulance workers, counter-terrorism officers, scientists from Porton Down. That, of course, is the government's biological and chemical weapons defence facility not far away from Salisbury in Wiltshire. Some of the hearings have been in public, some of them have been in private on the grounds of national security. We've also heard as well from Dawn Sturgis's family. Indeed, her mother gave evidence during the inquiry, describing her as an intelligent, funny and extremely selfless person. The Skripals themselves did not appear. They are still living in secret somewhere in the world with new identities, but they did provide written evidence. 3 Russian agents in the end were identified and face charges here in the UK linked to Dawn's murder and indeed the attack on the Skripals. Of course, Russia has always denied any involvement. They've described this inquiry as a circus, and there's no extradition agreement between the UK and Russia, so no chance at the moment of them facing justice here. Look, the family of Dawn Sturgis are keen to get answers as to whether or not any mistakes were made in the treatment which she received. Wiltshire Police has previously apologised for describing her as a drug user. That was something that wasn't true. Dawn Sturgis had issues with alcohol but didn't use drugs, and there's questions over whether or not the treatment that she received was different to that of the Skripals 4 months earlier, and could she have been saved. Lord Anthony Hughes will speak at the publication of this report. We're expecting that at 12 noon.
Dan, great stuff. Thanks so much.
Now, a pornography company has been fined £1 million by Ofcom for not having robust enough age checks in place.
It follows new rules that were introduced by the watchdog under the UK's Online Safety Act. They came into force in July.
Well, we can speak now to Oliver Griffiths, who is the Online Safety Group Director at Ofcom. Great to have you here.
Morning.
So £1 million, quite a big deal. Talk to us about it. What's happened?
So this is our first £1 million fine under the new online safety regime, and it's because this company has failed to live up to its legal duties to protect children by having an operative age check in place. And it's part of a broader trend and tide that we're seeing turning on online safety, and there have been important changes that have gone on this year.
So just on the sort of specifics of this company, did they just not have any age checks at all, or was the concern that actually they were just a bit of a token gesture? So
it's interesting. So this is a company that runs 19 porn websites in the UK. There were 2.5 million discrete users that use those sites in October. And they said that they had age checks in place, but they weren't good enough. So they didn't have liveness checks. So you could hold up a photograph of somebody else and that would get you through. Mm-hmm. But that's obviously just not good enough, and that's why we've levied the fine.
Okay. How effectively do you think age checks, obviously outside of this company that's getting fined, have worked since they came into force earlier this year?
So it's been really interesting to look, and I think if you cast yourself back to the beginning of July, then we had none of the top 10 porn sites had age checks in place. We had a lot of children that were finding their way to porn through X. There were a lot of research saying that was the kind of biggest journey start was with X. And you move forward now, we've got all of the top 10 have got age checks in place. Most of the top 100 do. And X has got age checks in place, and that's covering over 3/4 of the traffic to the websites. And actually, we've seen the volumes of visits to websites drop by about 1/3. Now, what's going to be really interesting is to see how much of that drop is because of children not being able to go there, and we'll be tracking that over the next year.
And I guess it's important to say this is not stopping people from accessing the site if you're over 18. That's none of your business sort of thing. It's
exactly right.
It's just the... You've got this report out today as well, haven't you, about the online safety landscape. What's it saying?
So what we're looking at is a sort of a tide that's been changing. And so there have been some important steps that have been taken. So I think the age checks on the porn sites is a really important part of it. What we're also seeing is that there have been millions of additional images of children's sexual abuse material that are being taken down and filtered out by technologies. And also some of the nastiest sites are no longer accessible to UK users. Now, we need the tech companies to go much further. And part of this report is also setting out what they need to do next year. And if they don't step up to the mark, then rigorous enforcement is going to follow.
What are the sort of levers you guys can pull if things don't get done automatically by the companies? I mean, clearly you've pulled quite a big lever as it relates to porn sites, and we've touched on that. What are the kind of tools in your arsenal that you're willing to use next year or the year after if things don't happen organically? Yeah, so look, we will use every one of those tools in our arsenal. And it's funny because the kind of really visible bit, but if you like, the tip of the iceberg is the fines and the enforcement. Actually, when you look at the big regulated companies, so the big household names, we're regulating 43 of them. And the major part we do is supervision, right? So making sure that they really understand what the obligations are, that we're really clear in terms of what we need to see from them, and then making sure that they live up to those requirements. And so that's a big part of it. Fines are part of it. And then ultimately, if fines, we can't collect them or the company don't change their ways, then we can apply to a court for business disruption measures. And that's an ability to block all access to a site for UK users.
Can I talk to you about a slightly kind of adjacent issue? But I think it is quite a big deal for people feeling safe online. And to do this, I just want to read you a message that I got this morning on Instagram, which basically said, "Why did you block me? I had to create another account to see your updates." This happens all the time, right? I've experienced it a lot. And this isn't me getting a tiny violin out, because there's going to be a lot of people out there in the actual world who are going to have people in real life who are domestic abusers, who are recurrent harassers in their actual lives. And it just seems to me like the tools in place to keep yourself safe online are not really fit for purpose.
Yeah. Well, we put out some really important guidance last week on women's and girls, because this is often quite gendered as well, just in terms of what we need to see from companies to step up on that. And just more generally, stepping back, what we've seen is 20 years worth of social media companies kind of following one particular business model. And it hasn't taken safety seriously. But what we're saying now is that we need to fundamentally see a change. And we've set out a number of measures today where we need to see people moving. And that could be in terms of taking down illegal hate speech, or that could be in terms of really making sure that we get to the bottom of what the recommender feeds are producing for especially our children.
A different question, if I could, to round things off, which is the last 15 years, obviously, social media companies have not been classed as publishers in the same way that broadcasters or newspapers are. It's just a town square where people can express their own views under free speech. Do you think that changes with AI and the answers that we might get when we type in a question to an AI tool? Are they the responsibility of the company behind it in a way that hasn't been the case when we just read posts by various people online? Yeah,
I mean, it's really interesting seeing what's happening with the wholesale integration of Gen AI into tools, right? And that's something that we are sort of absolutely focused on. And search is caught by the Online Safety Act, and we're really clear that if this is, for example, a chatbot that is also doing search, that's caught by us. So we've got the rules as set out in the Online Safety Act, and we will absolutely be pushing to enforce against those.
Really interesting to have you on. Thanks
so much.
Now, we've got a figure that might blow your mind, kind of off the back of what we're talking about. Yeah. So there are more than 8 billion Google searches every day.
Wow.
8 billion.
I thought it was every year.
No, that's 99,000 every second. It's crazy.
That is absolutely nuts. While many may feature the most basic questions, they also provide a snapshot of what was capturing our attention at any moment in time.
Yeah, I feel like it's the kind of glimpse into your soul, what your kind of most recent Google searches are. Here to tell us more about what we're asking about in 2025 is the Google Trends expert, Matt Cooke. Right, so what is everyone searching for?
Well, good morning. We've got these lists here which show what was trending this year compared to previous years, what's spiking in interest. And I think it does paint a picture of what was unique about 2025. Give you a quick sense of that to begin. The when is questions. Number 1, when is Easter? Number 2, when is Pancake Day? Number 3, when is Celebrity Traitors on?
Oh, yeah.
So it gives you a sense there of
yeah.
this moment, people coming together, wanting to watch something, not have any spoilers. Other things we've seen looking through these trends are real sort of British icons coming through on some of these lists that maybe they didn't appear in previous years. Male music artists, for example, the #1 across the UK was Oasis.
Oh,
we might have guessed that if you give us a chance.
I'll pause next time.
Yeah.
I'm touched you pointed at me when you said male music artists as the least musical person in the world.
You've got good company.
Yeah.
Elsewhere on the list, Glastonbury performances saw some legendary icons come back. So Rod Stewart at #3, Neil Young at #8. #9, Bob Dylan. There's a film about him, of course, that brought him back into people's consciousness. Black Sabbath, #10, of course, their concert earlier in the year, just before Ozzy Osbourne's passing. And moving over to the female music artist list, #1 on that is Cat Burns. That's probably potentially because of her appearance in Celebrity Traitors, but also as a credible artist we've seen for her search interest in her concert tickets at an all-time high as well.
I mean, it just shows a traitor's obsession, doesn't it, really, right? Yeah.
I love that. I think you shared with us also what the most how-to searches were. And following our last conversation, one was how to verify your age online.
And I think that shows you when things happen in politics, in news, in sport, in movies, it leads consumers to go onto a place like Google Search and find out more information. So how to verify their age based on some of the rules and policies that are coming through. Also on that list, some of the more practical things, how to apply for a Visa card, how to watch certain sporting moments. The one which I had to Google myself, #8, how to make ice cream in Grow a Garden, which I understand is a Roblox game for younger users.
I said, Roblox, this is another thing that is just, it's gone... Yes, yeah. I had no idea what this was before, but it's like Roblox has just completely taken off, hasn't it? It's so interesting.
And we're seeing as well, you mentioned the stats there, every single day on Google, there are 15% of search queries and questions that are brand new, never before asked questions.
Can I ask you about a change that's happened on searching, which is the use of AI? Because previously, of course, with Google, right, you search a term and you've just got loads of different websites coming up. Now, if you do it, the first thing that comes up is the AI answer. I mean, that's quite a big responsibility. Like, we're talking there about billions and billions of people using this to find out information about the world. Are you comfortable with the fact that this has now been answered by AI?
Well, I think we're showing with AI mode on search and other things like Gemini app, there's a real responsibility there for us to give most accurate, authoritative answers to users. We've got 20 years of experience of doing that and making sure that we're offering...
So it's not always right, though, is it? Let's be honest, right?
I think
sometimes the information is wrong. I know that happens with other websites too, but, it is Google branded this time, right?
And when people get those answers, we're giving them a streamlined answer, but still the same links for them to go off and discover more. We are seeing also that people are more likely to ask longer, more nuanced, complex questions on some of these AI places. But we know that when we do make mistakes, we will correct those and we'll rectify those because we know it's important to offer the most authoritative information.
How do you find out what was the process in checking the information?
So when you search for any query as the way you would normally, you have that answer, you have those other attribution links on the right-hand side of that search experience. Where we've seen in the past some things coming up which are anomalies, that's something called data voids, and that's typically where there's not enough information yet on that specific topic. When we identify those, we work with multiple different efforts across engineering to make sure we're giving those correct answers.
I guess my question is, how do you know when something's inaccurate, right? You say that, if there's a mistake, then we'll correct it, but how do you know if there is a mistake?
So in some cases where we've identified anomalies, that has been unusual, we've detected that, we've been open about that and we've talked about that. But also on our everyday tools that people use, we're referring to the web, that we're reflecting what is on the web. So users go on there and they'll see the different attribution links, they can discover that for themselves. So we know that people have got multiple different kinds of questions every single day. We're doing our best with tools and all of our algorithms to make sure they are getting the most accurate information possible.
Do you embrace the tighter restrictions and rules that I guess we just spoke about that exist in this country, perhaps compared to the United States? What's the view internally there at Google?
I'm not close to the details on that. That's more for experts on the policy side. But what I can tell you is we take those issues extremely seriously. We have community guidelines on some of our platforms which we adhere to and we act upon. And also we'll continue to obey the laws of any land we operate in.
Great,
Matt,
thanks so much.
Much appreciated, Matt Cooke
Thanks
from
for having me.
Google Trends.
I'm glad they don't have my how-tos. It'd be all sorts of like...
We've revealed our music choices this morning on Cheat Sheet, but I'm not sure if you want to review
How
what questions should I ask today's minister? That sort of question.
How to cook a really easy meal that even a 5-year-old could make, that kind of thing, I think is...
Now, Labour has been accused of trying to subvert democracy over plans to delay 4 separate mayoral elections by 2 years.
So these are the new mayoralties in Essex, Hampshire and the Solent, Sussex and Brighton, and Norfolk and Suffolk. They're all going to be pushed back to 2028. Mari is here to tell us why.
So what the government is arguing is that these new mayoralties have been created, but the councils need more time to set these up, to have kind of a reorganisation process. And so they were delayed by a year under Angela Rayner up to 2026, and as you say, 2 more years now to 2028. And Labour's argument is it's better to get it right rather than to rush councils into doing things when they're not ready. And this is really all about a project and an ambition around devolution. So Labour wants to have lots of locally elected mayors. It wants to have unitary councils in comparison to your kind of division between your county council and your district council. And so it's trying to streamline some of the process, and they're arguing it will be better for local residents and they will have more local champions eventually. The difficulty, of course, is that a 3-year delay, opposition parties feel that there's a political agenda behind this decision. And so you've got the Lib Dems, the Conservatives and Reform all arguing that this is unacceptable and undemocratic. So I'll give you some of the reaction we've got. The Lib Dems have called it a disgrace, said it's democracy being denied. The Conservatives saying it's essentially Labour losing popularity and losing credibility and trying to save their own skin. Reform saying that it's an attempt to stop big Reform wins in the May local elections, where we know they are expected to do quite well. And then you were speaking to the Labour Minister, Josh MacAlister, about just this, weren't you, Sophie? And he was trying to explain what their justification is and really try and tell Nigel Farage to pipe down.
People who are saying this are the same people who not that many years ago were proroguing Parliament. We'll take no lectures from these people about democracy, protecting it, freedom of speech and all the rest of it. It's just not serious.
So that's his argument. He was essentially accusing the Conservatives of being undemocratic when they prorogued Parliament under Boris Johnson. That was the allusion there. And earlier, when you'd put the quote of Nigel Farage exactly to him, he essentially said, Nigel, pull the other one. So they're not having any of this. They are saying this is perfectly acceptable and nothing to see here. The difficulty is it is a long time to wait. And people in some of those areas that you've mentioned might be raising an eyebrow this morning and asking themselves when they can finally vote in those mayoral elections and have a local champion.
Yeah, Mara, thanks very much indeed.
Now, after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about the renewed search, about a decade on, more than a decade on, for MH370. You might remember the plane that went down, and the search begins again for it. We'll be talking about that.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. It's one of the greatest aviation mysteries in history. What happened to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370? Well, the plane disappeared in 2014 after taking off from Kuala Lumpur en route to Beijing with 227 passengers and 12 crew on board. A new search is about to begin for it, and to tell us about it is aerospace engineer and founder of MH370search.com, Richard Godfrey. Richard, thanks so much for joining us on this story. So a new search begins imminently. Why is that?
Well, there have been several searches already, but unfortunately unsuccessful. And Ocean Infinity have offered the Malaysian government a no-find, no-fee search. So they're willing to take the entire financial risk for this new search. And they are determined to find MH370.
What are the chances of success?
I think they've excluded all of the known possibilities, the standard locations where you would go and look.
Hello? Is that a freeze? I think it's frozen. Wasn't sure if that had frozen initially or
Just need to get rid of my coffee. Apologies. Yeah.
Well, we'll try and get that back up with Richard Godfrey a little bit later, but if not, we'll follow up in due course.
Came back slightly sooner than I was expecting. We'll try and, of course, get back as soon as we can. Now, tomorrow, England and Scotland will find out their group stage opponents for next year's World Cup, which, of course, is going to be played in America, Canada and Mexico. And for the first time, FIFA will use dynamic pricing, which means the cost of tickets goes up when demand is higher. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has been speaking exclusively to the head of the White House's FIFA World Cup task force.
Safety is key, and the president is focused not just on our World Cup, but the safety and security of Americans and those international visitors that are traveling here. He wants specifically the World Cup to be a welcoming event, but he also wants to make sure that it is safe and secure. He wants to make sure that each of these cities are doing everything they can to make sure it is a safe experience.
It is a tournament to welcome everyone, but there won't be visas, will there, for Iran and Haiti in terms of their fans? Will there be any chance of Iranian and Haitian fans getting visas to come?
Every single visa decision is a national security decision. We can look at the Iranian delegation this week. Part of them got approved and part of them didn't get approved. And those were each taken individually to make sure that, again, whether it's Americans, whether it's English citizens, whoever it is coming to the games, we want to make sure it's safe, right? So yeah, it's welcoming. We're welcoming people that want to come here, want to enjoy the World Cup.
A lot of fans have raised questions about ticket resale sites. Is there anything you can do to stop fans being exploited? Have you got any message to those who might try and buy up tickets to sell them on and exploit fans at high prices?
Well, what I'd say is, look, we have not been involved in any of the ticketing in terms of, I know there's dynamic pricing. I think the market will end up dictating kind of demand for this stuff. And, kind of point to FIFA and
Rob Harris there, and of course looking forward to that World Cup draw tomorrow. Let's go back to Richard Godfrey. We're back in connection with him, of course, talking about the search for MH370. Richard, you were just sort of telling us the hopes of success, which on the surface I would presume are close to zero, but is that not the case?
No, the area where we believe MH370 will be located has been narrowed down extensively. There have been a lot of studies done by different experts, and Ocean Infinity are planning to go and look at every one of the so-called hotspots, and it's a much smaller area. Previously, they searched 120,000 square kilometers, and this time they'll be searching just 30,000. So it gives you an idea. They seem to be homing in on where location of MH370 is.
And I presume, if found, the most prized asset will be the black box.
Yes, I think the location will tell us quite a bit. The status of the wreckage will indicate a lot more of how the plane crashed. But of course, getting the flight data recorder and all the data on that will tell us the exact flight path taken and start unraveling who and why in this mystery.
What is your working assumption?
My working assumption is an area of 30 square kilometers, which is very small when you consider the size of the southern Indian Ocean. And that's around 29 degrees south and 100 degrees east. It's about 2,000 kilometers from Perth in Australia.
And just finally, then, what's your timeline expectation? When does this search begin again? And presumably it's not going to be an overnight story.
No, they're planning 55 days in the Indian Ocean on underwater operations. They're starting at the end of December. So they'll be there until May next year. And they are determined to stay there, take as long as it takes.
Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Richard Godfrey there, talking about the search for MH370, which starts again.
Talking now, of course, about AR. We were speaking about it, of course, with our guest from Google, who was talking about the increased use of it for helping people find out inquiries to search. There's lots of ways that it's infiltrating our lives, often in very useful ways, but there are some concerning elements to it as well. And this next story is really a stark warning to everyone, including us, about the growing threat of disinformation online and not believing what you see. This is unbelievable.
It hit very close to home yesterday when our very own Yalda Hakim was targeted with a deepfake video that became widely circulated across social media.
It's astonishing. And in this clip, Yalda was interviewing the sister of the imprisoned former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan. So obviously a very, very kind of hot topic, if you like, something a lot of people feel very strongly about. First of all, we're going to show you a clip of the original interview. This is the real one that went to air.
We understand the family has not been able to see him for several weeks. If you could just talk us through his condition based on what she told you.
Well, thank you for having me to sort of speak about Imran Khan's condition. You have to understand that it's 7 weeks now. And in the past 7 weeks, my sister Uzma has been allowed in.
So that was the real clip. Now here's the deep fake, and just to emphasise, both the question and the answer that you're about to watch were completely faked. They didn't talk about any of what you're about to watch.
I want to understand, why do you think that the war happened between Pakistan and India? Your statements created some chaos, as I have heard.
Well, Yalda, this Asim Munir, is a very radicalized Islamist, Islamic conservative, and this is the reason why he yearns for a war with India, because his Islamic radicalization and conservatism is forcing him to fight against those who don't believe in Islam. This is what differentiates him from Imran Khan, who's a pure liberal. So whenever Imran Khan comes to power, you will see that he always tries to befriend India and even BJP. Whenever there is this radical Islamist Asim Munir, you will see that there will be war with India, and not just India, even the allies of India will suffer. I keep telling again and again that Imran Khan is an asset, and the West needs to increase its efforts to free Imran Khan.
I mean, just to emphasise again, that was all fake. We put the treatment on the video at Sky News, I should say, just to make it really, really clear that it's untrue.
So it was even more real than that.
So it's even more real than what you just saw on your screens. And I mean, I'll be honest, it's taken my breath away. The clip's been picked up by press, politicians in the subcontinent. This is it. It's very, very difficult to tell what's real and what isn't. We can talk to Yalda, who joins us now. Yalda, thank you so much for being with us. Firstly, I'm really sorry this is happening to you. I found it quite disturbing, let alone what it must be like for you. What's your kind of reaction to it?
Morning, first of all, Sophie, Wilf. But as you say, I mean, deeply disturbing, because not only was it shared tens of thousands of times, it was picked up by mainstream media in the subcontinent, and even the defense minister of Pakistan was responding to it. He was talking about the fact that, India had been taught a lesson by Pakistan back in May when they had that confrontation where they were basically on the brink of all-out war and Donald Trump had to intervene. So we've had politicians, as you say, respond. It's been shared tens of thousands of times, picked up by mainstream media in the subcontinent. Commentators are discussing it and resharing. And in fact, this morning, there was another deep fake of me with a spokesperson, an Indian spokesperson, in some kind of embrace, which was completely fake and fabricated, again, shared thousands of times. So I think it's a deeply worrying time, because often we hear about the fact that AI deepfakes are a threat to our journalism, our democracies, and here we are seeing it played out in real time, where people don't have the literacy to decipher between what's real and what's fake. And then these things sort of spread and can be quite dangerous when you've got states who could be on the potential brink of war over these sorts of comments.
I mean, could be so dangerous. And I don't want to make light of it, but genuinely, it was so compelling. I hadn't watched it until we played it. I'd been reading about it in preparation. But it's almost like you sort of want to text Yalda to read out a code to make sure we know it's her. It's crazy. It is so crazy watching that back. And Yalda, my question to you is, when this news reached you, what did you do in response? And how have the platforms been in helping to take it down versus to let it spread? This is all unfolded in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Initially, it was pointed out to me via my producer by Imran Khan's sister, because she was dealing with the backlash of it. What she basically apparently said, and based on that deep fake, she was targeting the most powerful person in Pakistan, the current army chief, who has consolidated power. He's changed the constitution so he has more power and immunity. And she basically, in that deep fake, is accusing him of starting the war in May with India. So she was quite alarmed and felt threatened and wanted to alert us to the fact that this had taken place. Obviously, our data and forensics team, Sky News team, the management stepped in and are providing support. But in terms of it being taken down from the platforms, I mean, it's very much still being circulated, and not just circulated. We're now seeing another version of sort of deep fake AI out there as well. So it's sort of almost, multiplied in the course of the last 24 hours, 12 hours since that initial deepfake, when I put it out on my social media platforms that this had happened. I spoke to a disinformation expert yesterday who specializes in the region and says this sort of thing happens all of the time, and people just aren't able to decipher between what's real and what's not.
I'm staggered by this, honestly. And as you say, the fact that it's been kind of politically weaponized in the last 24 hours already. Yalda, you cover the most kind of controversial, difficult conflicts across the world all the time. How worried are you when deep fakes are thrown into the mix?
Well, first of all, Sophie, I mean, you kind of had to look at that video multiple times to say, oh, wow, this is fake, because I saw it being shared on my platforms and I kind of didn't click on the main video thinking it was just part of that interview I had done until it was brought to my attention. So you can see how easily you can ignore something that looks quite real. And if this is happening to us, it's going to continue to happen to politicians, and it's going to get better and better. I have to say, this particular one was better than deepfakes that I've seen in the past year, 2 years. So they're going to continue to manipulate these videos. The technology is going to get better. And I think we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to tell the difference ourselves. We're really going to have to look quite deeply and have people who specialize in this to be able to tell the difference. And that in itself, when people are trying to spread disinformation, when states are trying to spread disinformation, can be quite a dangerous turning point. I was able to pick this up. I was able to put something out and say it was fake. And even then, despite that, it still continues to be shared. And I'm being told, actually, no, it's not a deep fake by those who want to believe this narrative. So I think it is a very dangerous crossroads, especially when we can see how easily we can be targeted.
Yeah, extraordinary stuff. Thanks for jumping on early with us today. Yalda, Hakim there. Of course, more from her this evening at 9 p.m.
I am honestly quite shocked. Because obviously we knew the story was coming. I heard about it in the abstract before, and then you see those two videos sliced together. And, we think of ourselves as being quite savvy when it comes to spotting fakes or disinformation online. That looks exactly like the real thing. And then how do you come back to that as a journalist? How do you convince people that it is a fake when it looks real?
But it wasn't just adapting the end of an answer either. That the entire question and answer were fabricated. That is astonishing, really. I think it will have big knock-on effects, this sort of thing, going forward.
Yeah, how do you tell what's true? There's massive questions. It's pretty scary, I have to say.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll speak to the creator of a purpose-built rucksack designed to support homeless people. It's sort of an all-in-one bag and sleeping bag. We'll be right back.
There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3.
If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist...
My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it. Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal? Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
The Data and Forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparency in journalism. We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
We gather, analyse and visualise data to tell data-driven stories. Sky News has been given exclusive data Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in. Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Hello, welcome back. Now, as the nights get colder, look, for many, it's a sign Christmas is getting close there. But, of course, it's the time that for more than 350,000 people who are homeless on nights out, it is getting absolutely freezing.
It's awful, but the company in the US is doing what they can to make things better, creating these rucksacks that may just help someone get through the night. And Carrie Lombardi joins us now. She's the director at CityPack. A very good morning to you, Carrie. Thanks so much for joining us. You've brought one of these bags in for us, but just explain to us the story behind it and exactly what the kind of idea is.
Sure. Well, CityPack, as you mentioned, started in the U.S. The founder, Ron Kaplan, is from Chicago, and he, like so many of us, would walk to work and see his unhoused neighbors. And so many of them are carrying these plastic bags and the elements and everything's getting wet. And so he had the idea, it's a very simple idea, but very impactful, and found a partnership with Samsonite, the international luggage company. Together, Samsonite and CityPack with a focus group of folks who have had experience rough sleeping, discuss the different features of a pack that might make it very helpful for them. We all have a rucksack or a commuter bag, and we think about what do we need if we're going hiking. We want our bag to have this. Well, this one is made with rough sleeping in mind.
So just talk us through the bag itself and why it's specifically designed for people who might be sleeping rough.
Sure. Well, from the focus group, we determined that a larger capacity bag, it's not a school bag, and it's discreet, so because you want to, the folks who are rough sleeping want to feel part of the community and not stand out. It's ballistic nylon, and so it's weatherproof. One of the favorite features is that inside the bottom here is a poncho that will cover the pack and the person.
Keeping dry. That's
right.
That's got to be the key thing.
That's right. And there's an internal zipper in the front or inside that will keep your documents dry, and also anti-theft webbing loops so that folks can't get stolen.
It's amazing that you guys are doing this and providing these for free. It's obviously to be hugely commended. But at the same time, I'm sort of sitting here thinking, a pouch to keep your documents dry. Is that really going to make a difference to someone who's homeless? I guess it's the thought I'm having is it sort of reveals that it's a sort of temporary sticking plaster over a much bigger problem. That's as I said, you guys are doing amazing stuff with this, but I guess it reveals the scale of the problem as well.
Well, for certain, it is it's just a backpack. A bag is a backpack, but we believe that we know from experience that the folks who receive these bags it's a moment of dignity where they can feel like they have control of their belongings. It's also an opportunity for connection. Our job is to support the organizations of nonprofits in London and in other cities that do the work day in and day out. It's not a solution, but it is a first step of connection to begin helping these folks find a safer place to unpack their bag.
I just think it's worth pausing to talk about homelessness more generally. I thought it was really interesting when you said your founder was from Chicago, and I remember going to Chicago, to the States a while ago and being quite shocked by the level of rough sleeping. I'm a Londoner, we didn't see it in London. I feel that's changed. You know, just from my own experience walking around the street, I think that rough sleeping has become so much worse, and you can see that backed up in the stats as well. I think it's really, really troubling. You know, it does feel that we are starting to get that level of rough sleeping in London, but in other cities, Manchester, across the UK as well.
It's a global crisis for certain. We've distributed 120,000 of these in the US, and we go to where there is need. And you're right, there is need throughout the world and the UK. And our hope is that here in London, you know, we'll get them around. We can work with other organizations in different parts of the UK and the world. And it is a global crisis. And part of the job here, it's just a pack. But it's important to talk about this crisis and how do we begin to have the conversation and meet these folks where they're at and remember that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Carrie, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Director of CityPack, handing out a lot of those in the weeks ahead. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have all of the day's top stories, including that growing pressure on the NHS with the fears with the flu crisis, strikes and other factors putting too much pressure on. We'll be right back.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, good morning. It is 9 o'clock and welcome to Morning with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophie and Wilfred, a very good morning from me as well. Lots to get to.
Patients are being set up to suffer this winter and facing 12-hour waits in A&E because people are turning up to emergency departments with hiccups and ingrowing toenails.
US Democrats release never-before-seen images of paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's private island.
The doctor who supplied ketamine to the late Friends star Matthew Perry is jailed for 2.5 years.
Should billionaires be more charitable? It's after a couple in America pledged more than £6 billion to support children.
And we'll also hear from our very own Yalda Hakim about how she was the victim of a deep fake. You will not want to miss that one.
Leading nurses have warned hospital patients are being set up to suffer this winter, with reports of people facing 12-hour waits in A&E.
So part of the problem, not the whole problem obviously, but part of the problem is people turning up to emergency departments with minor issues like blocked noses, sore throats and even hiccups. Now, health officials say that England's A&E department saw more than 200,000 cases last year that could have been treated by GPs or pharmacists. And of course, that comes at a time where we're seeing corridor care, a bad flu season, and the upcoming strike by resident doctors as well.
Well, our health correspondent Ashish Joshi's here to talk to us a bit about it. And I guess there's just a sort of plethora of issues building. But what's new today? It's this data that the NHS is kind of being quite forward on.
In the next half an hour or so, we'll get the first winter sit reps. So over the past few weeks, months, we get monthly statistics about handover times, ambulance waits, and how long people are waiting for care. This is different. This is the first winter sit rep. This is a snapshot of hospital trusts across England telling us about capacity, how many patients are in their beds with flu, respiratory illnesses, and that gives us an indication of how much pressure the system is under, how many patients are there that might be discharged, how much capacity they have, and how they will try and use this data to prepare for the next few weeks and months, which are, again, we say this every winter, but they will be another difficult winter because of the reasons Sophie's just gone through as well.
How much of an impact is the doctor strike going to have?
It's going to have a huge impact, and it does. And the doctors recognise this, the government recognises this. If you take resident doctors away from emergency departments, that means consultants have to step up. Other staff are brought in, and they have to backfill for these resident doctors who are on strike. And that means the rest of the hospital essentially grinds to a halt. That has changed over the last couple of years. We had 2 years of resident doctor strikes. They were junior doctors, as they were known then. But what has happened now is hospitals and trusts being told to prepare locally and not impact on the elective waiting list. But this flu season is going to be very, very difficult because I've been in a hospital this week talking to respiratory consultants and patients, and the warnings were there because we take our data from the Southern Hemisphere. We look at what's happening in Australia and countries in the Southern Hemisphere and know that that will be replicated in the Northern Hemisphere when it's our winter. Australia suffered really badly. Flu hit them hard. Patients in hospitals, lots of deaths, new strain of the virus, but that's to be expected. But I spoke to some patients in hospital this week, and they were in a very bad way. Preston Hospital, where I was filming, at capacity already. And this is Paul Mather, who has pneumonia and pleurisy. Listen to what he says.
I thought the end was near, I'll be honest. But
you thought you were going to die?
I really did, yeah, seriously.
Can you breathe?
Oh, well, the thing is, every time you breathe, that's the sharp pain. And so you've got to breathe, obviously, and that was just giving me so much pain. And finally they realised it, got me on morphine quick. And they've been very good. They've been very good.
I thought it was so interesting, Ashish, what you were saying last hour about the flow of how hospitals work, because particularly in light of the strikes that are coming up once again, I guess it's not just 3 or 4 or 5 days of backlog. It builds up a bottleneck.
Absolutely, yeah, because contingency planning has to be put into place to manage what will happen during those strikes, during the days that these doctors are out on strike. But then you've got staff having to call up patients to cancel appointments, and then you've got staff having to call up patients to rearrange appointments, and it all just keeps building up. And we know, you guys are big on the politics of the NHS. Labour came in and said, we are going to bring the elective waiting list down, and it struggled. And if you have resident doctor strikes, you're not going to catch up with the elective care plan. You just can't do it because all of the other employees have to pivot towards providing care for the patients while these resident doctors are on strike. And that's why Wes Streeting will want to see an end to this as quickly as he can. But he's struggling because the two sides are so far apart.
Yeah, I mean, you can see him trying to kind of pin some of the blame on the unions, moaning minis, he described them as on this programme. But I think, you know, as you say, if those waiting lists don't come down, then Labour is going to be the ones held responsible, no matter what the circumstances.
Absolutely,
that's the reality. Thanks very much, Ashish.
Now, never before seen images of paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein's private island have been released by politicians in the United States. The images from Little St. James, part of the US Virgin Islands, where Epstein's believed to abuse underage girls. They show Epstein's home, including bedrooms, and some photos show a bizarre room with a dentist chair and masks hanging on the wall.
I mean, it's grim. It's truly grim. We're seeing this because, of course, some of those files are being released. Democrats are saying it's a harrowing look behind Epstein's closed doors, and so Congress currently pressing the Trump administration to release all of the files on Epstein. They're coming. Our US correspondent Mark Stone has this to explain now.
New images and video have been released of Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island. So what do they show? Who released them? And why? Well, here they are, taken in 2020 by the authorities in the US Virgin Islands. They show the property once owned by Jeffrey Epstein on Little St. James in the Caribbean. Epstein owned the whole island, and it's where much of the abuse against young girls is alleged to have taken place. The images and the videos show several bedrooms and bathrooms at the property. There's an office or study too, and on the walls, a blackboard. A closer look at the blackboard appears to show the words power, deception, political, truth. Some of the words have been redacted or obscured, and it's not clear what the words refer to or who wrote them. There's a telephone too, with first names on speed dial: Darren, Rich, Mike, Patrick and Larry. Others have been redacted. And then there's this, what appears to be a dentist chair and masks on the wall. It's not clear what need there was for a dentist chair. The masks look as though they're decorative, but again, it's not clear. One video shows the swimming pool area at the property, a property which the Epstein estate sold in 2023. Another shows a winding path down to the sea. But there is no context to these videos or to the images, and it's not clear precisely who took them. But last month, the House Oversight Committee in Congress here in Washington requested a tranche of documents from the US Virgin Islands Attorney General as they continue their own investigations into the late paedophile. These few documents appear to be from that wider tranche and were released by the Democratic Party members of the committee in an effort to further pressure the Trump administration to release all the files. Remember, President Trump has approved the release of the files. He did that in mid-November, and the Department of Justice has until the 19th of December to go ahead and release them.
Of course, we'll bring you up to speed as soon as we get more information on those Epstein files. The trickle is turning into a bit of a steady stream at the minute, and it's making some pretty grim reading and viewing, I have to say. In the meantime, we can talk politics. We're joined now by Matt Vickers, who is the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, also Shadow Minister of State for Crime and Policing. Good to have you here today. First of all, we've had these mayoral elections delayed. Is that fair enough?
No, it's not fair enough. We need to get on with these elections. We know what the power for good that these mayors can deliver. They can deliver, well, we see it in Teesside with Ben Hoochin, creating jobs, delivering infrastructure improvements, saving our airport. the reality is these mayors can make a huge difference.
Well,
we need to get on with electing them.
I guess that's what Labour would say. They said that's the whole point. They're trying to kind of reorganise local government.
There is no reason for this delay. We've got our candidates in place. We're ready to fight these elections. We're ready to bring the change that people want in those communities. We need to get on with these elections. But you know what? Looking at Keir Starmer, you can kind of tell why he's a bit scared of facing the electorate. When you look at the damage that his budget's doing to this economy, 19% more people
He's not scared of facing you guys, is he? He's scared of facing reform.
Record levels of tax. We're seeing
how's your polling
record
going?
levels of tax to give a £16 billion
You're giving him an easy out, aren't you?
A £16 billion bung in welfare. It's absolutely ridiculous. He is trashing our country. We can tell why he's scared of an election. Bring it on. We're ready to fight that election.
Can we talk? You mentioned their welfare, and I think there is a really genuine and interesting argument, an important argument going on at the minute about claims people are making for mental health reasons, right? Anxiety, ADHD, autism. We've seen an increase of it in the welfare system. We've also, which we were talking about this morning, seen an increase of it in special needs setting, in schools as well, and that's leading to an increase there too. Are we over-diagnosing something that is part of normal life?
I think when it comes to welfare, actually, that is the biggest contrast in British politics today. You have the Reform Party, you have the Labour Party, you have the Greens, you have the Lib Dems. They're all against the scrapping of the two-child cap. They want to see more spent on welfare. We're the guys...
Though, sorry, that's a completely different area of welfare. What I'm talking about here is the diagnosis for mental health problems.
More broadly on benefits, we've said that you need to reduce welfare by 23 billion. We've put together a scheme there. You can look at the detail. It's about that overdiagnosis. It's about low-level mental health issues and what is and isn't part of daily life and what is and isn't a serious mental health problem. We've said about mobility cards, said about benefits for foreign nationals. There needs to be a reduction in welfare. People out there are paying more and more in tax while other people are receiving more and more in benefits. It can't go on like that. There needs to be a reality check on this. But actually, the government's talking about this morning. They've just handed over another £16 billion in benefits paid for by taxpayers across the country. There needs to be a reality check. And when the last time they came with welfare reform, they couldn't get it through the backbenchers. You saw that welfare reform that they were going to reduce, to a small extent, they were going to reduce the welfare spend. It ended up costing more in welfare. They are the party of welfare. They are the welfare party.
Just specifically on this mental health issue, because I do think it is, it is a debate that people are having, and people will come down on either side of this debate. When you talk about a reality check, are you talking about a reality check for people who are getting diagnoses for mental health issues that they shouldn't be claiming welfare for?
There are differences in mental... There are people out there who have really serious afflictions, really serious mental health problems, who need support. The welfare state is there to be a safety net. But you also see, the growth, 3,000 people a day signing up for sickness and incapacity benefits. That can't go. It's up 50%. There isn't huge... 1.1 million more people have gone on benefits for reasons of sickness since this government came to office. You can't go on like that. We've got to have a robust system that's fair for taxpayers.
How about with special needs in school? Because we've also seen an increase in the number of children being diagnosed with things like ADHD, autism and so on.
I would say there's quite a big difference in that. I think that young people out there in schools with special educational needs need the support that's put in place. There are assessment processes there. Actually, in the aftermath of the pandemic, we saw the longest of shadows of the pandemic was what it meant for children in education. The number of children who qualified for ECHP went up, it doubled. So it's right that we put more money in. The last government put £850 million of funding in there, created 60,000 more special educational needs places. And now we've got a big debate because actually the government have got reforms coming forwards suggesting that we might scrap education and healthcare plans. That's terrifying parents in my part of the world who fought hard to get the kids the support that they need. And we've seen the £6 billion black hole in the education budget. Is that going to fall on schools? Is it going to fall on special educational needs support?
So Josh MacAlister said this morning that it won't be absorbed by the education budget.
Where's it coming from? You don't find £6 billion down the back of the budget, down the back of the sofa. £6 billion is a huge hole. And actually, when you look at whatever you might want to criticise the last government for, it delivered on education, some of the best education standards on the globe.
Can I ask you about... It's a little bit of a bubble story, but you'll forgive me because there is some troublemaking, I'd say, going on around Robert Jenrick at the minute, saying that actually, is he going to defect for reform? Should reform try and steal him? Is he annoyed that Kemi Badenoch seemed to be doing a little bit better in the leadership than previously? What do you reckon?
You're right, it's a bubble story. You guys have got to find a way to write stories. Robert Jenrick is right behind Kemi Badenoch. He's getting stuck in. He's delivering in his brief, holding David Lammy to account. Jenrick is behind Kemi. Boris is behind Kemi. He's got the zip and zap to deliver for the country. And I'm right behind Kemi. She's doing the business. She's holding this awful Labour government to account. We want to see more of it.
OK, thank you very much, Matt Vickers, for the Conservative Party.
Now, it's that time of the year, well, it's yesterday, where people's social media starts getting flooded with screenshots of their end-of-year Spotify Wrapped.
It is a big moment. If you don't know what it is, then it is basically this breakdown of all your listening habits over the year, the good, the bad and the ugly, basically.
And one of the statistics that Spotify gives you is your listening age. It's sort of Spotify summing up how old they think you are based on what you've listened. Do you know what reveals how bad and old I am is I don't get one of these because I don't use Spotify. I do use a different service, but I guess I already hints at what my age would be on this.
It's basically been lighting up our mornings team WhatsApp group. So I thought we'd bring you and just embarrass a few members of the team, if you'll forgive us. Sarah, editing the programme today, real age 46. I think we can bring it you. Let's have a look. 62, Sarah. You know, well, only 20. It could
By
be
the way,
worse.
I celebrate this because mine is definitely tilted this way as well. So good for you, Sarah.
Thomas, probably the coolest member of the team. I think it's fair to say. Real age is 34. This is the listening age for Thomas. I mean, that's outrageous.
But does
That's
that also
absolutely
mean,
outrageous?
If that's sort of tilted, he's probably listening to sort of Postman Pat. Sort of,
Actually, maybe that's true.
What's making that?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
What's your one? Have we got your one?
I got mine was 28. So, you know, that's pretty good.
That's pretty trendy.
Which is, I am actually 28 as well.
Yeah, exactly, I was going to say.
It was bang on.
Mine, by the way, which we don't have because it's Apple Music, but I did get a monthly breakdown. It says top artist by month. Gosh, my age would be high. January was Elton John.
Very current, Wilf.
February
very current.
Was Billy Joel. April, Phil Collins. Then I've got very trendy, Coldplay. Is that trendy?
I think I don't
Yeah.
think
It's not old Coldplay, is it?
Well, they're not new, I think is also fair.
Mumford & Sons, Lewis Capaldi.
I mean, look, I don't think you'd be 18 like Thomas, is all I'm saying, Wilf.
No, but I don't mind, you know?
It's fine.
You've got to listen to what you want to listen to,
No, exactly. And also, genuinely, some of the older music is the better stuff as well. Let us know your listening age on Spotify, any particular artists that we need to get on our playlists. You can email mornings@sky.uk or find us on social media as well.
We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Matthew Perry, of course, his tragic passing because of a ketamine overdose. One of the people that supplied that ketamine to him has now been sentenced. That story next.
we are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
For Harborne. A little bit of breaking news to bring you now that has come out in this morning. New figures out, and this is the political party donations, right? They always publish them. And I have to say, there is one very, very stark headline because there's been a record-breaking donation to Reform UK, the biggest ever donation to a single party. Has been made. So Christopher Harborne donated £9 million to Reform UK, Nigel Farage's party, on the 1st of August 2025. To put that in context, all parties combined received £24 million in donation over this period. Just under a third was that single donation to Reform.
Christopher Harborne, for those that don't know, including us until a moment ago, is a businessman who has made a lot of money in both aviation and in crypto. He lives in Thailand, but has obviously made lots of money throughout the years and was a founder and investor in aviation fuel company AML Global, and he's also a big investor in Tether. Tether is one of the biggest crypto companies out there, an issue of stable coins. Yeah, 9 million quid.
The second largest single donation was to the Conservatives, Jeremy Elliott-Sand. That was £1 million donation. JCB also gave £500,000 to the Tories. That is the construction vehicle company, of course. Labour's largest single donation was £360,000 from the Unite Union.
More to come on that when we have further details. Now, this next story is incredibly stark. It's a warning to everyone, but I guess particularly to us, about the growing threat of disinformation online and not necessarily believing what you see.
Now, this hit very close to home for us here at Sky News yesterday when our very own Yalda Hakim was targeted with a deep fake video that became widely circulated among social media and also picked up by politicians as well.
In this clip, Yalda was interviewing the sister of the imprisoned former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan. This is the original clip that actually went to air.
We understand the family has not been able to see him for several weeks. If you could just talk us through his condition based on what she told you.
Well, thank you for having me to sort of speak about Imran Khan's condition. You have to understand that it's 7 weeks now. And in the past 7 weeks, my sister Uzma has been allowed in.
Now, get ready for your mind to be blown because we're going to play you now the fake version. Both the question and the answer, completely faked. Didn't talk about any of it in the interview. And I should just say before as well that we at Sky News have treated this video as well to try and make it look more obviously fake. So the real one, the real fake video, if that makes sense, was even more realistic than what you're about to watch.
I want to understand, why do you think that the war happened between Pakistan and India? Your statements created some chaos, as I have heard.
Well, Yalda, this Asim Munir, is a very radicalized Islamist, Islamic conservative, and this is the reason why he yearns for a war with India, because his Islamic radicalization and conservatism is forcing him to fight against those who don't believe in Islam. This is what differentiates him from Imran Khan, who's a pure liberal. So whenever Imran Khan comes to power, you will see that he always tries to befriend India and even BJP. Whenever there is this radical Islamist Asim Munir, you will see that there will be war with India, and not just India, even the allies of India will suffer. I keep telling again and again that Imran Khan is an asset, and the West needs to increase its efforts to free Imran Khan.
Really quite unbelievable. We spoke to Yalda about it last hour.
Initially, it was pointed out to me via my producer by Imran Khan's sister, because she was dealing with the backlash of it. You know, what she basically apparently said, and you know, based on that deep fake, she was targeting the most powerful person in Pakistan, the current army chief, who has consolidated power. He's changed the constitution so he has more power and immunity. And she basically, in that deep fake, is accusing him of starting the war in May with India. So she was quite alarmed and you know, felt threatened and wanted to alert us to the fact that this had taken place. Obviously, our data and forensics team, Sky News team, the management stepped in and are providing support. But in terms of it being taken down from the platforms, I mean, it's very much still being circulated, and not just circulated. We're now seeing another version of sort of deep fake AI out there as well. So it's sort of almost, you know, multiplied in the course of the last 24 hours, 12 hours since that initial deepfake, when I put it out on my social media platforms that this had happened. I spoke to a disinformation expert yesterday who specializes in the region and says this sort of thing happens all of the time, and people just aren't able to decipher between what's real and what's not.
These are the real versions. That before was the pre-recorded version, slightly confusingly. But there is a really serious point here, isn't there, about, I mean, honestly, as someone who works in media and you know, sees myself as quite good at spotting disinformation, this is what we're trained in, right, Wilf? How on earth do you tell what is true or not?
It was so compelling. I mean, it was so, you just wouldn't tell.
No.
Frankly. Again, as Yalda was going to there, it can spread very, very quickly. And particularly across different geographies, it's even harder to then try and rein it back in again once it's out there.
Yeah, and can be weaponised for political reasons as well.
Now, a doctor who pleaded guilty to selling ketamine to Matthew Perry in the weeks before the actor's overdose death has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Oliver's here to tell us more about this. And Oliver, just remind us of that initial tragedy as well.
So back in 2023, Matthew Perry is found face down in his jacuzzi. He's drowned, and the coroner's report finds the first cause of death was the drowning, but the second one was from the over-excessive use of ketamine. And Matthew Perry is somebody who'd been struggling with addiction throughout his life, somebody who had his first drink at the age of 14, struggled with alcoholism, struggled with substance abuse, prescription pills, somebody who was at one point taking up to 55 pills a day. And he said, you know, when he was Chandler Bing, if you look at the various seasons, you could see how the addiction had taken hold on the occasions. On some series, he was far bigger than what he was on other series, depending on what he was addicted to at the time. But then he had depression. And so in America, you can get a prescription for ketamine, which is a tranquilizer. It's used in the UK if you have an operation, if you're in a lot of pain. It's also got hallucinogenic effects. But when he went back to his doctors and said he wanted to increase that dosage rate, the doctors said no. And that's when he ended up going to this illicit ring, this network that he had, which included his personal assistant, 2 drug dealers, one of them called the Ketamine Queen, and then 2 doctors. And it was Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who's the person who's been sentenced. Now, in a sentencing memorandum, prosecutors argued, rather than do what was best for Mr. Perry, someone who had struggled with addiction for most of his life, Plasencia sought to exploit Perry's medical vulnerability for profit. It then went on to say, indeed, the day Plasencia met Perry, he made his profit motive known, telling a co-conspirator, I wonder how much this moron will pay, and let's find out.
Wow.
Gosh.
Wow, that's very stark, isn't it? It really is.
Really stark. And find out they did because over the course of 13 days, Plasencia charged Perry $57,000 for 20 vials of ketamine. And bear in mind, the street value of a vial of ketamine in America is around $15. Now, look, drug dealers aren't known for running a not-for-profit organisation, but it doesn't take a mathematician to see that is a huge markup.
It's interesting as well, because look, this is a story, the very, very tragic story of a big name celebrity, right? One of the most famous people, like always on our screens. But it shines a light on something else that is going on in America, and I'm guessing here to an extent as well, about these prescription drugs and doctors who are effectively immoral, I think it's fair to say, in prescribing drugs that they shouldn't to people for profit.
Yeah, far more regulated in the United Kingdom. In America, I mean, look at the opioid crisis that they've got in America. We do have a problem, though, in the United Kingdom with ketamine, especially amongst young people, because if you take too much ketamine, it damages your bladder, it can leave you incontinent, ridden with pain. And it has highlighted, it can be a cheap drug, and with cost of living crisis and all that sort of stuff, it's a huge concern for people in the medical profession here.
Oliver, as always, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be talking about an extraordinary donation by a couple in America. $6.25 billion they announced they were donating earlier this week. We'll talk about the details of that and the implications next. Welcome back. Well, of course, the Christmas countdown is on. It's traditionally a time of generosity and goodwill. For many, the cost of living has made it hard for people. And one couple in America is trying to change that. They just pledged $6 billion to help fund millions of child investment accounts. Michael and Susan Dell are the two people that have made that donation of $6.25 billion to 25 million Americans that will be spread across. And to discuss it, Jonathan Simmons is here, the Chief Executive of New Philanthropy Capital. Jonathan, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Quite an extraordinary gift, this, from Michael Dell. his wife.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you know, if you find yourself in a position where you've got more money than you need to then do something like that with it, that's incredible.
It's also really interesting to me how they're donating it. You know, obviously lots of people have causes close to their heart, but this is an attempt to give 25 million children across America at the lower end of the income scale a sort of nest egg to then grow over time. It's not just necessary to a particular cause.
Yeah, I think one of the differences between philanthropy and when a government does something or something like that is the philanthropist gets a little bit more choice. They can be a little bit more risky with their money. They can do things that they have to measure the impact of it, but they can put risk into it, which I think this does. It says, well, look, wouldn't this make a massive difference to all those young children? Let's see if it works. And then they can see over time, and if it does, maybe other people will put more money into this kind of thing.
Clearly, in America, there are people who have this much money in the first place. They're a much wealthier nation, and the sort of skew of that has come of late. Is there also a different culture when it comes to giving?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't live there, so I think it's easier to talk about the culture we have here. I think the culture there is definitely there's social pressure and social proof around giving, and you can just see that by walking around any of their cities with all the names on the buildings and stuff like that. I think there's a culture of giving here. I just don't think there's much of a culture of talking about it as much. And the question, I think, is if we talked about it more, if we told more stories about it, then would that drive more people to give? Because we've definitely got an amazing culture of giving here.
I mean, but I guess here most people wouldn't talk about it for noble reasons. Like if they're giving, they kind of want to for the actual giving of it, not to get credit. But are you saying that there's a argument that it should be kind of celebrated more in order to try and lead to more giving?
Definitely. I think we live in a storytelling, marketing culture where stories lead to other things happening. We know that. And so if it is as noble as it may be, if it's hidden or if it's quiet, if it's felt like it's something you should do without necessarily sharing those stories, then other people are not going to realise when they come into large amounts of money, because that's often what happens through inheritance or through a sale of a business or something, they won't think, oh, maybe I'll do something like that. So I think we do need the inspiration. So yes, I would like to see more people talking about it.
And what are the most common ways that people do give in the UK, and particularly the wealthy people? I mean, and where would you point to try and encourage more of it to happen?
Well, I think we believe there's a big area for the banks and the wealth advisors to play, because we see that when you have some kind of financial event, that's when you're most likely to feel in a position to do that. So I'd like to see them be able to talk to their wealth advisors or talk to their banks and have that conversation, but we've got to equip them with the right kind of conversations. And then there's all kinds of amazing structures, and there's a whole industry of people out there that can help them. I think that first step of getting in, and that's about you going, there's a cause or there's something that interests me, and as someone said to me the other day, just do something. Find something you care about, because you'll see the results pretty quickly.
And I guess a lot of people here do leave money in their wills. Is that a common way of doing it or not?
Yeah, I actually think we're seeing an awful lot happening in people's lifetime, because they can see what's happening. I think there's an awful lot of family, next generation. When you realise as a family you've got more wealth than maybe your family needs, there is a question, should I think multi-generational, or should I actually look at the world around me today? I think people are becoming very conscious. I think the Dell example says this, that there are problems we're facing, and philanthropic capital can do something about that in a way that other forms of capital can't.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Jonathan Simmons from Philanthropy Capital.
Thank you.
We've been talking a lot about online safety on the programme today, and Sky News is also speaking to 3 TikTok whistleblowers who say that users are now being put at risk by mass layoffs at the company. So, as well as increasing the role of AI in moderating content, TikTok is also reportedly offshoring jobs to agencies in other countries as well.
Well, TikTok says the changes will maximise the effectiveness of moderation on the platform. The moderators' names have been changed to protect their legal identity.
Do you think these cuts are going to put people at risk, as in users?
Yes. There are a lot of nuances in the language. AI cannot understand all the nuances. AI cannot differentiate some, ironic comment versus a real threat or bullying, or, a lot of things that we have to do with user safety, mainly of children and teenagers.
We felt like we were part of something big, and then at the end of the day, we're the first ones to be replaced by AI or by people in other countries.
Let's say if you see a naked body, you don't really need to be British to know it's a naked body. But when it comes to, for example, hate speech or harassment or bullying, there's always this cultural thing that maybe other people are not going to get.
Well, we also spoke to Ofcom earlier on the programme about whether or not some of these social media companies are doing enough.
What we've seen is 20 years' worth of social media companies kind of following one particular business model, and it hasn't taken safety seriously.
Mickey, Carol, that was a short clip.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry.
Well, that.
Sorry.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, Mickey's here and going to be more detailed for us, I hope, and break down the sort of key points that stand out for you and where we've come from on what these social media platforms were doing and what they've said they've been doing.
Well, I mean, if we look specifically at what the whistleblowers have told us from TikTok, they've got kind of two claims that they're saying around user safety is the first one. So these, the claims are all about TikTok reducing their moderation workforce. Now, those are all the people that kind of keep us safe online, and they have done for years. They sift through the most kind of violent, sexual, abusive content on the internet, stop it coming to our feeds. So TikTok are now getting rid of more than 400 people from their UK workforce doing that. And these whistleblowers say that that's going to put people in the UK at risk. Firstly, because they say TikTok's AI is not capable of doing what the company says it can do, that it can't accurately sift through people's feed in the same way a human could. But also, if those jobs are sent abroad, specifically to agencies, then those agency workers are likely to be facing higher workloads and not have the kind of local context that you might need to understand when a slur is a slur, that sort of thing. So they say that that's going to put people at risk. And there's also a claim from these whistleblowers and also from the unions that have represented them that TikTok have misled MPs about these cuts. And I mean, online safety has been a massive deal in the UK for a long time, but particularly this year. And so when MPs heard about these cuts happening, they asked for evidence that they weren't going to hurt users. And when TikTok replied, in this 3-page letter detailing what they were doing, they said that there was that it was important to stress that the cuts were still proposals only. And these moderators have now told us that hundreds of people had already left the company by that point, so that was misleading. I think this all plays into this wider picture of like a growing concern and awareness in the UK about online safety. I mean, we had new, really kind of sweeping rules that came in July, meaning that all adult content had to be age verified for young people. Before that, all illegal content had to be gate-kept from young people. So we have got this kind of growing conversation and awareness in the UK that this plays into.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. TikTok have come back as well, haven't they? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So TikTok very strenuously denied both of the claims from the whistleblowers and the union. So they said, in regards to the impact on user safety, as we've laid out in detail, this reorganisation of our global operating model for trust and safety will ensure that we maximise effectiveness and speed in our moderation processes. We'll continue to use a combination of technology and human teams to keep our users safe. And then in regard to that claim that they misled MPs, they said it's entirely right that we follow UK employment law, including when consultations remained ongoing for some employees and roles were still under proposal for removal. We've been open and transparent about the changes that were proposed, including in detailed public letters to the committee, and it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise.
OK, thanks so much, Hakim.
Do check out the full report online, by the way. QR code there for you as well.
Now, coming up, we are going to be talking about angry shoppers. I don't know why they're angry. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know why they're angry, but they are angry, and we're going to find out why in just a few moments.
There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, eh?
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away. Okay, but listen, I told you.
If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Now, you might have seen some of this on Black Friday last week. Shoppers getting angry, in particular targeting that anger at retail staff, who, to be fair, are very, very rarely the actual problem.
And as we get closer to Christmas, there are real concerns that it's only going to get worse, leading one organisation to launch a new campaign asking people to calm down.
You're their punch bag for that few minutes.
You cracked me in the head with a basket right there. That scar will never go away. I wear that scar now forever.
Bruce Finley from Landsec, commercial property development company, joins us now as part of this campaign. Bruce, I mean, just break that down for us. We saw a little clip from the campaign, but this is a real, genuine thing. There's a lot of abuse happening, is there?
Good morning. Yeah, unfortunately, you saw those stats there with something like 3/4 of retail workers and hospitality workers receiving some sort of intimidating behaviour and almost a quarter actual physical assault. It's pretty shocking.
What would those statistics have been like over time? I mean, it is completely shocking when you say that 73% that have experienced it. Is that risen over time, or is it sort of always that striking?
Well, you know, I've worked in retail over 30 years, and unfortunately, it's not a new situation. I think what might be happening also is people are able to come forward and report things more frequently, which is a positive sign. But it does seem that it's getting worse, and certainly this time of year when it's going to be so busy, people literally bumping into each other out there in the high streets and the shopping centres, it raises a lot of concern for the people working out there.
Yeah, it's appalling, isn't it, really? There's just no way that anyone should be put in that situation at work. You say that you feel like it's getting worse. Do you have any sort of speculation or ideas about why that might be?
Well, you know, it is important what you said there. Everyone deserves to feel safe and supported in the workplace. And of course, we're taking a proactive effort here, both our responsibility for the visitors and guests and the shoppers. But whether it's a return or a busy queue or products not available, there's no excuse or a reason to turn on a member of staff who's just doing their job.
What is footfall like in terms of in-person shopping versus online? One would assume these sort of worsening statistics happen when it's too busy. So is that a factor here?
Unfortunately, it's happening all the time. Every week, something like half of the staff out there are reporting some kind of incidents. At this time of year, with the stresses and strains, we know there's financial pressure on everyone and the cost of living crisis. And then there's just, they got to find that item for their kids. It can be a very stressful time. And that's why this campaign's out there, to just raise that awareness, the importance of a smile, a kind word, a thank you. Because it can get stressful, but we're in this together.
And Bruce, just finally, in terms of the feedback you've got from this campaign, do you think it's starting to work already or not?
Yeah, certainly. I was in Southside yesterday. There was some training going on for the staff there. The Retail Trust is there to help them in how to de-escalate situations, as well as support when there are incidents. So little by little, we hope to see this change. And with your, you guys broadcasting this, hopefully people out there will just remember in that flashpoint to just take a breath, step back, and respect each other.
Bruce, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm
stressed about my Christmas shopping already, I have to say. It's that time of year where it's like, oh, I need to get cracking.
Yeah, but be calm, both on the shopping aspect and everything about it. Great to hear from Bruce Finley there.
Let's just bring you some pictures now. This is from Athens. This is the Olympic flame, which is the kind of traditional way of lighting the flame ahead of the Winter Olympics. They were brought to the ancient Parthenon temple on top of the Acropolis in Athens on Wednesday, and they're spending the night there before being delivered to the Winter Games officials, which is all going to take place in Milan. Cortina.
This is a really stupid thing to admit. I didn't know that they did this for the Winter Olympic Games starting in Athens. I guess, of course, they do.
Yeah, I mean, look at that as well. What a place to do it. It doesn't get better than that, does it? The Parthenon Temple.
Very nice indeed. Now, that's obviously the Winter Olympic Games coming up early next year. But also coming up next year is the men's FIFA Football World Cup. And England, Scotland will find out who they will face in the group stage tomorrow. Of course, there's still a chance as well for Wales and Northern Ireland as well, just in the playoffs. For the World Cup, the draw is tomorrow, and of course the World Cup next summer is in America, Canada, Mexico.
For the first time, they're pretty controversial. We've read about this before. FIFA's going to be using dynamic pricing, which basically means the cost of tickets will go up if there's more demand, so it can also go up or down, of course. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has been speaking exclusively to the head of the White House's FIFA World Cup task force.
Safety is key, and the president is focused not just on our World Cup, but the safety and security of Americans and those international visitors that are traveling here. He wants specifically the World Cup to be a welcoming event, but he also wants to make sure that it is safe and secure. He wants to make sure that each of these cities are doing everything they can to make sure it is a safe experience.
It is a tournament to welcome everyone, but there won't be visas, will there, for Iran and Haiti in terms of their fans? Will there be any chance of Iranian and Haitian fans getting visas to come?
Every single visa decision is a national security decision. We can look at the Iranian delegation this week. Part of them got approved and part of them didn't get approved. And those were each taken individually to make sure that, again, whether it's Americans, whether it's English citizens, whoever it is coming to the games, we want to make sure it's safe, right? So, yeah, it's welcoming. We're welcoming people that want to come here, want to enjoy the World Cup.
A lot of fans have raised questions about ticket resale sites. Is there anything you can do to stop fans being exploited? Have you got any message to those who might try and buy up tickets to sell them on and exploit fans at high prices?
Well, what I'd say is, look, we have not been involved in any of the ticketing in terms of, I know there's dynamic pricing. I think the market will end up dictating kind of demand for this stuff. And, kind of point to FIFA and
Rob Harris there for us. And so the draw takes place before the playoffs, so I guess there'll be some people drawn that's an either-or in the groups.
Yeah, just adding to that sense of anticipation.
It'd be quite interesting to see who the home nations get.
So we've been talking about your Spotify Unwrapped on the programme today. If you've got no idea what I'm talking about, this basically is your kind of year in listening to music if you're a subscriber to Spotify, and it gives you your age, right?
And Spotify got your actual age right, 28.
28, I know, yeah, it's amazing, totally amazing. But we've had quite a few viewers emailing in as well, mainly saying how they've got a young age as well. So Tracy says she is 65 and her listening age is 24, so that's pretty good, I have to say, Tracy. Steve Williams says he's 46 and his listening age is 30 and he feels very proud, which I enjoy. But the winner, who puts the rest of us to shame, is Keith Pike. I think we can show you a picture of Keith. He sent in photo evidence of this. He's 76 years old and his listening age is 27. Keith, you need to tell us what you're listening to so that me and Wilf can become more cool and trendy.
Congrats, Keith.
I love that. I absolutely love it as well. We had a really nice email, I should say, too, from a woman called Susan, Sue from Rossendale. And this is in response to you, Wilf, I think, talking about how Phil Collins was one of your most listened to artists.
Legend.
So Sue emailed in to say, I recently had an operation to remove skin cancer. Sorry about that, Sue. I hope you're feeling all right now. While being prepared for surgery, I was told my blood pressure was too high for them to begin, which sounds incredibly stressful. They played Phil Collins to me, and then my blood pressure came right down and they went ahead. So there you go.
There we go. I think that is sort of similar. That's a much more important and good example, but that is sort of why you put a bit of Phil on.
Yeah.
Just calm it down.
Calm down. And there's a scientific
Apart from
reason
that
for
drum
it as
bit,
well.
I guess that kind of gets it going again.
Yeah, not that bit. Not that bit so much. Love it, absolutely love it. Thank you so much for watching this morning. It's been great to have you with us. We're going to have lots more news coming up on Sky News with Darren McCaffrey in just a few moments.